Okay, I'm calling this April 17th, 2023, regular meeting of the Mancos RE6 School Board to order. The time is 6:03. Roll call, please.
Pam Coppinger,
Here.
Victor Figueroa,
Here.
Katie Cahill,
Here.
Emily Hutchison Brown, present, and Hunter.
Present.
Okay, we're all five here for quorum. Would you rise and join me in the pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone, for being here.
I move that we, oh, you gotta go through your public.
Public participation, well, I think we only have
I'll just-
repeat, so I think they know if you have a sidebar conversation, take it outside. If you have a cell phone, please silence it. Do we have any public comment?
Oh,
No?
Well, is it on the
Yeah, we should have.
agenda, we have toy as the on public comment.
For the, was that what her report was for public comment? Okay,
It was listed under there, yeah.
okay, yeah, I didn't see that, sorry. Okay, so I'll put down here. Okay, so then yes, let's go for approval.
I move that we approve the agenda with the change of moving Ed's presentation to item 6B and deleting discussion item D from the agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to accept the agenda with the changes of Mr. Whitworth, sorry, I messed that up every time, to 6B from discussion item D. Any discussion? Okay, we call the question, Heather?
Katie Cahill,
Aye.
Pam Coppinger,
Aye.
Victor Figueroa,
Aye.
Tim Hunter,
Aye.
Emily Hutchison Brown.
Aye.
Okay. Motion passes 5-0. Public participation, so we do have the.
Wait,
Approve your minutes.
A what?
minutes.
Approve your minutes.
We're gonna approve the minutes.
Oh,
I move that we approve the minutes from our last. meeting.
sorry.
I'll second that.
I just marked off two at one time. Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of the March 13, 23 regular meeting. Any discussion? All right, Heather, call the question, please.
Katie Cahill,
Aye.
Pam Coppinger,
Aye.
Victor Figueroa,
Aye.
Tim Hunter,
Aye.
Emily Hutchison Brown.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 5-0. Now we have Troy's report.
Not here yet.
She's not here.
She's not here. Well, I think you all read it.
I did communicate with her by email earlier, so I am expecting her, so.
Can we just agree to give her some grace and move forward with DAC and Mr. Wartner? Or do we have to amend the agenda?
No, we can,
Although there is time at the end of the meeting,
Yeah. there
we could
is
move her to
two.
the end.
Yeah, let's just give her some, can we give her grace? Can we do that?
Sure.
no, we can interject
It's
it
just
wherever we
nice.
want.
Okay. Okay, so then we jump ahead to the
Tico.
Tico's report.
Accountability report.
Yes.
Not much to report to y'all this month. We ended up having discussions with the principals and preschool director about curriculum. And it was a really good meeting, really deep discussion with each lead for each school. And we also kind of solidified more of how we have two different audiences we're talking to, this admin and the board. And so we don't have recommendations to the board this month. We talked with principals and can't remember if we made any recommendations to Dodd during that meeting or not, but nothing for the board. Really good discussion. We did not talk to Travis Greenlee about sports. He wasn't able to make it. There was a bit bad communication on that end. We're gonna move that to another month.
Yeah, that was my error.
Did you talk about actual proposed curriculums or process of curriculum? Were you presented with any curriculums or
we
were you
were-
talking
yes.
about the big process?
No, we were both. The process of how to get curriculum, how the school is getting curriculum, how it's implemented, at the actual curriculum for certain things. Preschool, Tira brought in the actual curriculum, did a little example of it. Kathy had paperwork just showing what she does and how she does it. And Ed showed a PowerPoint of like the basic standards. What's the correct word for that?
We had the priority
Oh, that's
standards,
right
the
here.
power standards.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Let me know what you need. This standard, of what each teacher is supposed to be teaching and how they're doing it, and the organization for future staff that are coming in, so that there's good flow from new staff and old staff. It was a really, really good discussion when it came down to curriculum.
We did look at the ELA, we had a presentation on elementary ELA curriculum as well.
The one that is forthcoming.
Part of, yeah,
Okay,
as an evaluation, yeah. Because we don't have a recommendation yet for the board for ELA curriculum.
yes,
So she talked about ELA curriculum in particulars,
okay,
without having a recommendation for one particular one.
I understand.
Okay, but there was no discussion on the process of how we adopt a curriculum? There was?
There was no discussion of needing recommendations or anything like that, no. It was just what we heard, we
Okay.
liked, and
So were you able to give your feedback then live to the people who were there, whether it be Kathy or Ed or whomever, like, okay, as a group, we're feeling like this is rising to the top, or we like this or dislike this? Was that the type of conversation it
yeah,
was?
it was a lot of asking questions of like, what does this mean? Why are we doing it this way? How is this happening? With not a lot of resistance of when answers were given, like, I don't know about that, or I don't see this, or should we be doing it different? Most everything that was said ended up being reassuring to everyone that was there, so. That's my report.
Okay, any other questions for Theo and the accountability committee? All right, Ed, would you like to talk about student portfolios?
I'm prepared to.
Okay, that's good.
Well, I cringed at the word presentation because that's not, like, I was here to answer questions about the digital portfolios. That's what I understood.
So, let's go into questions.
You have questions.
So what do you, I guess, help us understand what you hope to see at the beginning of next year around portfolios?
At the beginning of next year.
The start of,
Yeah.
start of next year.
Well, that's well lined out in that 4B report too, but just that beginning to actually have students start to develop habits of using them. Because at this point, that isn't there, but we have some foundational work done to start getting them to use them. This ties back to, I believe maybe Adion shared with me that one of the things that came up, which reason I was asked here too, was like to try and remember where that discussion began in the strategic planning. And where portfolios fit into that and how it's connected to PBL is that, a core piece of PBL and why we did it was to have students become more engaged in their learning and not be, the wording that I recall is like, to like learn, be part of the process. It's like, instead of taught to, taught with, and that students become more part of the discussion about their grades and having a real understanding of where they are when it comes to standards, understand what the standards are and where they fall within them, that tied into standards-based grading as well. And the portfolios being a vehicle for making that happen so that progressively over time, students can speak, articulate their growth over the course of a year and have evidence to do that with. And that's what the, you know, the digital portfolios would be for. So we get back to the beginning of next year, it's, you know, working really hard with sixth graders, you know, as a target group, but certainly the whole secondary, but to have them just become, it become habit and normal for them to be compiling their, you know, proud pieces of work that represents their growth in academic standards through TBL projects. So,
And you, I know, Allian showed us a program last month. And that was, I think it was a
It's just
Google,
Google Sites.
right? And is that the plan to use that program?
yeah, it makes the most sense because it's in their world of that Google suite. And it's really intuitive and it's gotten much more so in the last like 5-6 years since I became familiar with it. So, yeah, that's the one that makes the most sense. They can pull stuff directly from their drive into that, fits into a bigger plan of getting our students more, our teachers and our students more savvy with that Google suite.
And do you see, I mean, I see sixth graders getting, starting to put work in. Do you see seventh graders starting to put work in, eighth graders, ninth graders, 10th graders? Or do you see certain groups putting work into that program and then eventually getting other groups to put it in, or all kids going to try to put some work in through that program?
Yeah, all, I mean, but certainly the, you know, it's like, again, a little heavier in middle school.
At least at first, is that what you're
Yeah.
asking? Yeah,
Yeah, if I,
Yeah.
next year introducing.
like the first group would be that sixth grade group, and then slowly implemented over the next following years, like to kind of trickle up.
Right, so that's what I'm saying. So are you thinking that only sixth graders next year? And seventh graders the next year, eighth graders, or are you thinking sixth graders? We're gonna have seventh graders kind of starting to put work in, eighth graders starting to put work in within the same year, within next year.
Yeah, I don't, I mean, maybe I would speak to that better. I feel like, I know the focus being 6 and then growing it up, but that's, you know, I don't think that we've fleshed out specifically how much 7th, 8th will do, but, yeah, so that's just the most honest answer I can give you. And,
The report has like a three-year plan with this spring is year 0 and then next year is year 1. And it's heavy on sixth grade and seniors. And then the following year is all grades.
and this is another thing that's sort of getting rekindled because it was, I think it was a little over a year and a half ago that we started trying, you know, got teachers to all create their own portfolios and begin to get familiar with that process. And then it didn't move much further than that.
You know, that's a good segue, Ed, is that I think one of the things that I myself as a board member and as like person who is kind of at the ground floor of it, the strategic plan is like, as we're moving through these monitoring reports, we're starting to kind of see like some concerns about capacity, right? And through like seeing what is kind of not working or what hasn't worked or what we've kind of ignored, or ignored is not a good statements to say, but do you think that this objective there's capacity within your secondary school system to fulfill these objectives? Should we, you know, as we go to our board retreat, should we look at this and maybe like, I don't know, I'm opening up these
Yeah.
questions because we're taking theory and putting it into practice.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it connects to Victor's question about which grades and how much, and there's like an urge to want to say it'll be more. than sixth grade, and I know that we'll work to, you know, like, have other grades doing that work, but quite honestly, when we talk about capacity, realistic, what's realistic, then growing it and knowing that it's not, you know, it's gonna be several years until it's like, just becomes part of the system, is the way we could do it with the capacity that we have. And I mean, I'm really passionate about it, I'm excited to see that audio, and it's like really made the connections with the teachers who were part of the process in the beginning to get it moving again. I think it's important, and I'm excited to not feel like it's like my thing to drive, but it feels like it's shared now, and which will help.
Yeah, and do you think like maybe like putting that emphasis around sixth grade then will kind of push it up, but then it also possibly moving, and one of the questions is like pulling it down to the elementary school, like maybe that's a good starting place, is right smack in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay, cool.
I have one quick comment. As I read through the report, there was one thing that kind of stood out to me that I would like to make sure that we are mindful of. And that is finding the answer to, at some point, to the IT related question as to whether or not kids can preserve these capstone projects, download them offline, but put them somewhere. You know, although our lives are becoming more digital, it seems like, especially for those that are gonna walk this path for many years, that they want to retain some of that in some way. And to think that they could graduate and poof, it's just gone and inaccessible, as a mother, makes me kind of sad, because like, I want to, like, you know, archive it forever. And so I want that answer.
You can, so this is a part of what students need to be directly instructed with. And that may not necessarily work through just an email, like they need to be in a room and shown, here's how you do this. But you can download your entire, I don't know if download is the word.
Transferable.
Yeah,
right?
from
Transfer.
one Google account to another. And I've done this with like my college classes. I took everything out of there and put it into a different Google Drive. And the sites is a part of that too. So it'll transfer over.
Okay, the way the report's written, there's still some question in there.
So which one is that?
Oh, I was just looking for it. Yeah, it's in 4. Oh,
And I
wait,
think ideally, we'd love to be able to use both of those, have it.
Maybe that was
be
from first year, right?
downloadable to a hard drive.
I
but-
do know that
No, it was
Keita said that downloading to a drive is, or to a,
Hard drive.
yeah, is not.
Can students access their work or export it when they leave the school? This is a question for our technology director. When students graduate, they lose access to their school Google account. They are instructed to download their Google Drive to a personal account if they wish to save their work. We're unsure if the site, which would be housed on the school's network, would still be accessible once this happened. So your recommended use is to unlink or delete the project from their page. So, you know, again,
And that's a different.
time is of the essence, right?
So I can rewrite that and then you can do whatever you need to do as far as approval goes. But I was also recommending that once students have graduated, because if we do display their website on our website, they can still kind of manipulate things that are in there. So I'm just asking you to imagine where that might go.
Right.
And so my recommendation was graduation, remove.
As long as there's a step that is known to that, like as they're advised, or somehow there's an advisement. Or
Yeah, there's
You know,
something to be taught.
they're not advised in sixth grade, but they're advised again as a senior.
Yeah.
That's all I'm
Yeah.
saying.
And let parents know.
Yeah, maybe. That was the one thing that stood out, was just the preservation of all of those hours of work. that they're
And
doing.
I'll clarify again with Keith and then you guys separate.
Cool.
And you're gonna start this next year?
Yeah.
That's why I Yes, man. Give me an out.
This
That was like $1 million
This
question,
Dolly
wasn't it?
teaches keyboarding and a whole lot of Google Suite components
Yeah.
in keyboarding. And she and Archer are very well aligned with their advisory and how they use that time. And I communicated this with them, like, is this something that you guys could do? And they're on board.
Cool. Excellent. Yeah, I think it's very cool. Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Ed. Appreciate, and Audion for the clarity. That helps. Yeah, because that's new to me. Oh, were you there? I
She wasn't here
I was
last
not
night.
here, so I read the stuff, but I wasn't here last week or last month, so. It was my fault, nobody else's. All right, well, Troy still isn't here. So.
Sure, that's all the questions?
Yeah.
Related to that anyway.
Yes.
Thank you. It's good to see y'all.
Thank you, yeah,
Thank you.
good job.
So just for my edification, when we approve this objective, do we need to be, state that there will be a few edits in there, as Adian had suggested? No, I don't know, because we have to approve it.
Yeah,
Tonight.
we do.
Sorry, I'm just
Yeah.
sitting out there, just
Oh.
waiting to. And said they can plug you in anytime. I was like, I need plug in because I'm so tired.
Oh, no, I think that probably with edits from Audion would be okay.
Okay,
Just to note that she was gonna change that one
Okay.
section.
Okay.
Yeah. And that was the only change we had, right?
This,
Okay. Yeah. Okay, well, Ms. Toy, we're ready for you.
I'm glad somebody is.
You guys got a little packet from me, but here are my charts that I did not include in that packet. And that just gives you something to kind of. Use your scores. Yep, these are 2 sets of scores. Thank you. It's. And you've got yours. You're here every time. You might as well.
Yes.
I feel like I need like something to hide behind. Is there anything? I'm an introvert, so forgive me. Stand back here so I can see. You can sit.
You can
too.
sit down.
Yeah, pull up a
Yeah.
chair and sit. You
Yeah.
guys are awesome.
We're not that
You. I know it's not you, it's me.
Ah,
So I am here in regards to the current math intervention program that Shanti taught last year, and I have the privilege of teaching this year. I know it's grant-based, and the grant's over this year. And so my goal tonight, whether I'm hired next year or not to do this, is I want to just share with you just the importance of this program and the impact that it does have on all of our children. So I have a few notes here. So I've done a lot of research, and I know that in the packets I gave you, I cited all of my research that I had found. And some of it is my own personal experiences. Math intervention programs play a vital role in supporting students who are struggling with mathematics. These programs offer targeted support to students who required additional help in developing math skills, thereby promoting academic success. Mathematics is an essential skill for success in numerous fields, including science, engineering, finance, and business. Weak math skills can limit students' opportunities for career advancement.
And that comes out of the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics. Math intervention programs can help students acquire the foundational skills required to excel in math and related subjects, improving their chances of success in future academic and professional pursuits. So, you know, that's a lot of words. You guys already have it. I hope you guys have read it. So I'm just gonna I added a few little notes here on how this math intervention program for our students here at this school has had a positive impact on their self-esteem and their confidence. When you struggle with math, it can be very demotivating, and demotivating is just reducing that enthusiasm about math. If they're put in a classroom and everyone is answering those questions and these kids just don't get it, they have no motivation to even try. And so that's where I come in. It also can affect their confidence. But what I am seeing in our school is that this targeted support for math helps them regain that lost confidence and that lost motivation. So currently I'm serving 30 kids, and it's not only kids that are struggling in math. I also take those higher level math kids that are either not old enough for the gifted program because they don't start doing that till 3rd grade, or they're just not quite ready to move up a level, but what they're currently in is too easy. So I kind of fill in those holes and those gaps for them. I have, I think, 8 students that I teach at a higher level. And it also, I do have a little time in my day where I offer the math tutoring for any students. It doesn't matter who they are. They can come, there's a sign-up sheet by my door, and the teachers can sign them up for a little bit of that extra help. So I'm servicing 30 kids plus whoever comes and wants my help. So our math intervention program includes the fact that some kids don't like math. Some of these kids are like, they hear math. I was one of those. I didn't realize how much I love math until I was actually put in this position. So I have to find out what they do like. What do you do like? So these are some of the things that I have done in just the past couple of months. So with my kindergartners, we are doing s'more math because we're using little tiny marshmallows, little tiny graham cracker cereals, and they're learning how to add and subtract, because afterwards, what do they get? They get, when they're subtracting, they get to eat those marshmallows. I checked for all of their, the nurse, make sure there's no allergies. So that's something that has helped them. 1st and 2nd grade, currently, we're working on dinosaur measurements and estimation. And so if you look down our hall, you'll see these 30-foot lines, 10-foot lines, 18-foot lines, and those are the size of different dinosaurs. And so first, they have to estimate how many steps they would take, and then they have to actually walk the path of a dinosaur. And then they have to figure out the percentage. And they don't even realize they're learning. They're having so much fun doing that. 3rd grade, they're designing their own zoo. And they have to figure out which animals they want in their zoo. They have to figure out the area, the perimeter of what would be good for this certain animal. They have to figure out the food. I gave them a budget of $10,000 to decorate their cages and a list of things they could put in there. And so they really had to calculate, erase, recalculate. Again, they don't even realize they're doing math, but they are. My 5th grade advanced group right now is they designed their own lawn mowing businesses. They had to start with posters of how they would, if someone walked by, what would catch their eye. They had to decide how much money it would cost them
how much is dad gonna charge me to take me to this yard? How much gas am I gonna have to use? Am I gonna charge more for a bigger area, for a smaller area? And so they've been working on that, and they just finished and presented it to their class today. And they're hoping to present it now to Miss Epps. Again, did they know they were learning math? It didn't even dawn on them. So those are some of the things that I do in lieu of a piece of paper saying, here, do these math problems. You can come in my classroom anytime. You're never gonna find that. Except on Monday, they have to do their assessments. So that's how I get them to enjoy math. So when you have a variable of 2 + 2, so there's 2 variables there, they don't like that. But if I add marshmallows and graham crackers, that third variable, oh my gosh, they are going to love it, and they do. I use visual aids, I use songs and poetry for math for my kindergartners. And they're now excelling above the regular kindergarten classes. I'm pretty excited for them. We celebrate their successes. In my research that I've done, if they don't get an answer right, or if they don't do something right, it's not, wrong, you didn't do it. It's, oh my gosh, you tried your best, and let's try this. So I give them that little guidance, but for the most part, they're deciphering and doing things on their own. Part of a reward, one of my classes got cookies, but they had to make the cookies, and they had to do all the measurements for the cookies and get it right. And how it tasted was not up to me, but it was up to them. And that was kind of their test. That was their assessment. So it wasn't a paper assessment. It was, here's the ingredients. And I gave them different measurements, and then they had to transfer those measurements into ounces and cups and teaspoons and tablespoons, and the cookies were excellent. So my job is to create a positive and supportive environment, and I haven't had any complaints yet from my kids. So in lieu of that, I also have to be able to help them improve in their math skills. I handed you guys, and I apologize, I didn't get these in your packets. Do you mind if I put that there? So here we have 2 sets of tests. So as a math interventionist, I've got to come up with 2 different ways to assess them. So this first one is easy CBM scores for 22-23. And that is a assessment that I found that worked well. Shanti from last year, she gave me this book, and Miss Krupa gave me the book and said, try that. If you like it, use it. I love it. It's kid friendly, and it's kid friendly for me as well. So if you look down here, we have low risk, some risk, high risk, and it's very self-explanatory here. We have our fall scores, winter scores, spring scores, and then the percentage. And if you look at that last percentage marks, every one of them have gone up. We've had great success. The 57.5 is just that because there wasn't enough information for me to use, which means they probably were only here to take 1 test, and I can't give a fair assessment on that. So if you want to take a deeper look at that. The mathematics NWEA scores are something that the school does, and everything highlighted in green was a great improvement for these kids. I only chose, we had 14 kids, 1 moved, 13 kids are in my tiers. So I have tier 2 and tier 3 kids. The other kids need that support, so they won't be in this tier 2 and tier 3. And that's why you only have 13 kids here. So again, the NA was, there was just not enough data. and most of those kids are my kindergartners who don't take the NWEA in the fall. So I don't have data for them for the NWEA, but I do for the EasyCBM. So, and as you see, these kids were the bottom 10% or lower when I started with me in the fall. And now you have kids who had this much growth over time.
On these NWEA scores, can you tell us if the 14 that you're displaying here are representative of all of the grades K through 5?
Yes, this is all of my kids, K through 5.
So it's like it's a spread.
Yeah, I just didn't put their names because of confidentiality.
But the NA makes sense with the kinder.
Yeah, the NA is my kinders who don't even take
Not a
testing
baseline, right?
until winter, so there's nothing to baseline them on.
Got it.
Any more questions on?
I do. And can you tell me, how many of the students represented in this chart are in 4th and 5th grade?
So fifth grade are all my advanced kids. I only see the advanced kids.
Okay.
The
So you don't-
teachers, no, so they're not on here.
How about 4th grade in here?
4th grade, there is only one 4th grader that is on here, and there is an improvement with her. Again, all my NAs, 1, 2, 3, 4 NAs are kindergartners, and 1 NA is a student who just moved here right before the winter tests. So you're welcome. Okay. Let's see where we can.
And these are your tier 2 and 3 kids?
Those are my tier 2 and tier 3 kids. Yeah, the only tier 2 kids that I am not seeing would be the 5th grade and their teacher, because there were so many of them, she opted to keep them and let me have those higher level kids so that she could focus.
So you just.
Yes, yeah, because in this intervention, once you have more than 4 or 5 kids, it's classroom.
Yeah.
It's no longer an intervention. It's a class. And so legally, for intervention, I can only have 4 or 5 kids at once.
Gotcha.
So I have some studies here, and it talks about your learning problem-based instruction, which is our PBL, and that's mostly what I do. I didn't know it was PBL until I moved to this district, and Ed was like, "Oh, you're doing PBL and social studies." I was like, "Oh, I didn't know," but you know, I guess that was a good thing. So we have the few examples of some studies that have been done are, number one, there was a study done in 2005. It was conducted of studies on math interventions for these students with learning disabilities. And they found that explicit instruction was more effective than instructional approaches. So explicit is letting them have ownership of their education and letting them determine with my guidance kind of that path we want to take, because again, all students don't love math. And so I've got to figure out new ways to teach them. And that's where your explicit instruction comes with. You have another study on the math intervention program for 3rd grade students. The program again used explicit instruction and focused on building foundational math skills. The researchers found that the program was effective in improving math skills and that the effects were maintained over time. So the kids this year, even if they exceed these math tests in the spring that they'll be starting next week, it doesn't mean that the math interventionist is like, "Oh, you're done." I still will see them. And that's why I have 30 kids this year. 13 are in my tiers. The rest were in tiers last year, but we still want that support so they won't get lost. Of the 30 students receiving support for math intervention, 13, it was 14, one just moved Thursday. 13 are at the level 2, level 3 tier. I set goals for them through weekly progress monitoring, and that is, I combine their CBM tests and their NWEA tests. I combine those, I take each individual score, each individual student, and I write a plan for each individual. And then I take that plan and incorporate it into a lesson for them. Weekly, every Monday, they're given an assessment, and they have to pass that assessment 3 weeks in a row before we can say, okay, that goal has been set. Once that goal is set, we get to put that goal up here. We still touch on it because that's the best way to keep them learning. We meet 4 days a week for 20 to 30 minutes a day, each student. This targeted support has been critical in helping these students build the foundational skills they need to succeed in math. I am pleased to report that out of the 30 students, it's 29 now, but I'm going to say 30 students, 28 have had a significant math growth. And one stayed exactly the same, and one went down 1 point. And even with this one student decreasing by this 1%, this student still benefited from this program. Math skills are critical for success in a lot of many fields. If you didn't know math, right? It would be scary. Yeah. It'd be a little scary. It can be overwhelming at times, and giving them at this young age and giving them a passion and a love for math by not just throwing them a piece of paper and saying, here, you do this problem and then come and see me. I'm always at the table with them, and that's what a math interventionist should do, is sit there and engage with each of these students. And another way we do this is I use props, I guess you could say. So my kids that are learning multiplication, I have a dartboard, it's magnet, not pointy, it's magnet, but that's how they get their multiplication facts. They have to put the dart, and then dart number 2, then they go on the board and figure out, because it's like 12 times 25, things like that. And so it's just always going. It's not just flashcards. Here you go, here you go, here you go. There's a lot of different ways that someone in this position can engage with these students. Math intervention program provides targeted support to students who need it most, helping them build the foundational skills they need to succeed in math and other related subjects. I am in school right now, and if I didn't know math, I would be failing biology, but who knew they used math in biology and chemistry? Based on the reported success of the math intervention program at our school, I would strongly encourage the school board to consider the importance of the math intervention program and to continue funding for this valuable resource. The success of our students is paramount, and this program is making a real difference in the lives and students that it serves. I thank you very much for letting me come and listening. And are there any questions whatsoever that you might have?
Yeah, Toy, first of all, I mean, your scores, look pretty significant. These kids that have you obviously are making progress and most likely feel really good about math. Can you tell me anything more about the easy CBM scores? Are those growth scores or are those achievement scores?
Those are, so I give an easy CBM test. It's an assessment. It's 40 math problems, and it is our Colorado standards. It goes K through 12, but of course, I just service these K through 5. They have a test in the fall. And then as you can see there, that's the score. And then I reassess them right before Christmas, and that's my score number 2. And then I just tested them 2 weeks ago for their spring. And it's based on what they know. It's a little harder than the NWEA test. And it is a little tougher than what they're used to in the regular classroom. But if you look at their scores, it's not that tough. They're doing awesome. And I think it's just how these children are approached. I'm real big on using a lot of manipulatives and not a lot of paper. So, but those scores are their assessments. And then at the very last line is the average percent of their growth throughout the whole year. All right. Anything else?
Other questions?
Nope.
So thank you.
All right, thank you, guys.
We appreciate it.
My annual cheer squad.
All right. It's now board reports, the LRC. You all have my LRC report. Do you have any questions? I do have one update on the oh, shoot, did I open it? Oh, yes, House Bill 23-1259, that actually passed. Was it today?
I don't know.
It was today or Friday, anyway, it passed.
What's the
So
number?
Oh, that's the open meetings one?
1259, open meetings and executive sessions.
Oh,
We just basically gave school boards, if we make a mistake, we say the wrong code, the statute or whatever, or we did something we think we need to correct, it gives the school board the opportunity to cure that, to undo that mistake.
Okay.
Before anybody can come in. Somebody can come in and say you did this wrong, but they have to give you time to make it right without just immediately how the law was written, they just immediately come in with a lawsuit. And we all know how that's been spreading. And it was really telling when the Colorado Association of Lawyers supported this bill. So,
Frivolous lawsuits.
yeah, well, it was the way that this guy was making his money. And the board, the lawyers were pretty upset with it. So anyway, so that did pass. The other things are still in the works, but they were the ones that I felt like were most critical that I wanted you to have eyes on, is kind of watch as they go through. So, and the link should work there, hopefully. Cool. Yeah, thank you. So any other questions? All right, we have another LRC meeting on Friday, so we'll give an update then. All right, Mr. Figueroa, Casby.
Okay, Casby, I have a couple of different things. So if you haven't already seen, Casby has a new executive director. His name is Dr. Jubal Yanni. And a little bit about his background. They say that that he has a strong educational background, that he brings experience in both rural and urban communities. He's passionate about education in public schools and committed to students. So it says he's committed to students and to access and inclusion. He has already started. I went to the last rural board meeting, which was in April. In March, and he joined us during our rural meeting. So it was great to see him. He introduced himself, and it was just nice to have him see what we're trying to accomplish in those meetings. So that's one thing. The second thing is Sherry Wright is our CASB regional representative. The board asked that we meet with her. And so that is scheduled for May 15th at 5 o'clock. So we will meet with her about the following topics: teacher retention, compensation, rural roundtable meetings, buying down the budget stabilization factor, and just some things about inviting our representatives to talk with us about some of the challenges rural districts have. And so she will be prepared to talk more about that with us on the 15th. Then just some updates. We have Board President Cafe Thursday, April 20th. And the topic will be board members election. That's coming up in November, so it's a 101 type of topic. And then rural board meeting roundtable is Tuesday, April 25th. And then lastly, a lot of the information I've received from CASB has been really around making contact with our legislators. There's one of the things that they've asked us to do is to contact them about Kids Matter initiative, Kids Matter 2 initiatives, and it's really about telling our legislators that we have a surplus of money that we need to commit toward our teacher compensation, retention, and recruitment type of deal. And so they want us, and that money is coming from the Tabor. There's like $10.8 million that's available. And the legislators are trying to figure out what they're going to do with that money. And they want us to contact our legislators and ask them to put a good portion of that toward what the state owes districts already. And so if you want to know more, again, it's called Kids Matter 2.
And that's a
And
group,
so-
right?
What's that?
That's a group that's lobbying for.
That's the
this,
group that's lobbying for it, yes.
It looks like they're trying to address the BS factor as
Right.
well.
Right,
Yeah, and they're
So-
supposed to pay off in this budget, they're supposed to pay off like 180 million of it, which is a drop in the bucket compared to what they owe us, but
10 billion.
this year's budget.
well, even if they did that, it'd be a plus. You know, so if you guys have time, they ask the public, our parents, contact our legislators and support our educational programs in our schools. The more they hear from us, the more likely they will remember not to forget our students and our kids. Any
This is-
questions?
This was the same group that did the last one. What was it? They're trying to get it on the ballot or something like that for a vote, for the people to be able to use excess Tabor funds for schools, and they were gonna earmark it for schools. but
Right.
The legislatures couldn't take any of that money.
Right. That's a different organization, but they're working hand in hand, these two.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Okay, any other questions for Victor? All right, this is, BOCES.
You should have 2 pages of a report in front of you. We, sadly, Miss Sherry Noyce, had to step down, as president, I believe stepped down, in Cortez as well because of family matters. So, she was the BOCES board president. We held elections. Debbie Wilhelm from Bayfield is now the president, and I am vice president. And Sherry Wright was at the BOCES meeting. I believe she'll be replacing Sherry Noyce. And then Clay Talmadge was also in attendance at the last meeting last Wednesday on the 12th. I don't know if he's a permanent installation representing Dolores, as they had to appoint someone as a new board member and then divvy out the job. So we'll find out more there, because Lori Rainey had to resign because she took a job out of district. There's the district updates, if you have any questions. Edward, Royce gave the ED report. I will also say, if you look at the bullet points for the financial report, they're looking at doing an 8% increase in salaries, and that districts will see and will see an increase in membership costs. I thought that interesting point when Royce was talking about creating a guidance document around out-of-district services, I thought was very interesting. I think they're trying to create a document that is more inclusive of the district voice, who actually gets the student who's out of district. And so, and correct me if I misunderstand, that BOCES can make a recommendations of where a child should receive services, and they're in the preferred district based on the services available within that district. And so, and in the past, maybe the district that was receiving the child didn't necessarily have a full conversation about that. And so I think that's where things got a little difficult. So they're trying to rewrite those guidelines in the IEP process. And then the one thing that I need to talk to Todd about that we tabled was they updated the operating agreements. And so those actually go before the board. And so I don't know if I've really put eyes on that.
Are they increasing the amount? Is that what they're doing?
They will, yes, yeah, because they have not updated their pay scale since like 2016. And which is very difficult. And so I think we're ultimately going to be looking at what that looks to our budget.
Yeah, we're looking at about a 4% to about a 4.25% increase.
Okay.
What do we pay now?
Oh, it's really a little complicated because they retain our IDA funds, and then we pay on top of that, I think about 160
That's about right.
Okay, and about 4% on our 160.
would be increased, yep.
That's what we budget for.
Yeah, and then final, two last things. I did send Chrissy an email. I included Mandy Burge on it in regards to my questions around the Anthem insurance plan that she was investigating, that Ignacio uses. So I'll get some clarification around that. And then finally, in executive session, we reviewed the executive director, Royce Trainum, in her first year. So.
Right.
Any questions? All right. Okay, we're on the report, superintendent.
So I just want to highlight a few things that are a really nice complement to the important work that happens in the classroom. So the classroom instruction is paramount for our school district, and that's what's most important is making sure we're providing supports for teachers and so that they could be successful with students. What I want to highlight is some additional things that we're doing. We've been able to increase capacity, and we've applied energy to improving a few things. One of the things that we're really getting known for is being a leader with career-connected learning for small districts, for small rural districts, small rural school districts throughout the state. So superintendents are reaching out to me and wanting to know how well we're doing and what we're doing. And that all comes from the CASB presentation and all the other work that's going on. You know, in that area, I receive some coaching on a regular basis, on a monthly basis. And that coach is also telling other school districts what we're doing to be successful. We didn't have any approved CTE programs going into the year. We'll probably close the year with 3 or 4 approved CTE programs. And by Christmas of next year, we'll have 5. We didn't have any career certifications last year. And this year we'll have somewhere between 130 to 180 career certifications for our students. So that's going really well. The other thing is, just as a precursor, our work through the BOCES to improve all of our systems through MTSS, multi-tier system of supports. We took our second assessment, and we're going to hear about that on May. But I can give you a preview that our efficiency and our effectiveness as a school district increased according to that assessment, which we'll hear more about. Internally for grants, so we have a internal contract grant writer, and we're working on adding someone to provide coordination of the grants we get. We're going to be able to reliably bring in, you know, $200,000 to $400,000 a year in grants because we have that capacity and energy going to it. There's a lot out there, but other school districts don't have the capacity to do it. And then you add the capacity and energy with our county demographics, and we are, you know, really nicely set up. I mean, that's one area where our demographics really work to our advantage for funding. The other thing is, as retention starts to come in, the retention is looking to be very, very good. So I am just really thrilled about that. I think retention speaks to building level management more than anything else. And we're seeing some really good retention. So I think that we're going to see lots of great successes there. However, 2 areas where I'm really concerned about retention are with our paras, because what we pay them is below what they would be. I don't even want to say it out loud, but it's very bad. And then also our bus drivers. So we have 3 bus drivers, we have 3 routes, we're okay, but we're just one little bit of bad news away from finding ourselves in a pickle there, and we've known that for 2 years now. That's not unusual.
How do you do activity buses? I mean, there has to be some overlap.
Yeah, and those 3 take a lot of trips. And then also our coaches are using our 14 passenger bus more, which doesn't require a CDL.
Right.
So we're being, very thoughtful there. And then also Bart is our 4th. So he's our ace in the hole, and he covers us a lot also with any sick, and if we have any sicknesses or anything. The other place we're really applying a lot of capacity and energy is with our departments. And you'll start to see that there's processes that you'll start to be uplifted up more. You'll see more communication with the community, and you'll see standard operating procedures come before this toward more frequency with our departments. That's also linked to the work with MTSS, which is all about having systems in place, taking the time to plan out stuff so that our departments aren't going to be person dependent, because they've always been person dependent. And we're really working towards that. An example of this is on Wednesday, we'll have a safety and security meeting with about 16 to 20 community members who'll be evaluating this idea of how, as a school district, can we assure safety and security for our students and our parents and our staff. And so we're gonna have about 16 community members here to discuss that very important issue. And that will start the issue in our community also around SROs, which is something we've talked about as a board. And we know that that's in our future for us to have this very important discussion around a school resource officer. The other place where we're seeing some really cool systems developing is in our Mancos Early Learning Center. So, this year we have a new director there, and she is just really doing a great job with her existing staff, improving the systems and programming there as well. And I'm really pleased. And then the last two areas I just really wanted to highlight were really two that I'm very proud of. That's pretty impressive. So the Board of Education, as you know, received about a 3.5-hour training last Monday night with our trauma-informed practices. What are we doing as a school district to understand how best to serve students and staff? And then last Friday, the staff received that same half of what the training the board did. And that was their second training around trauma-informed, and they'll receive the second half of that on April 28th in a 2-hour session. And then today we started our conversations with Resilient Colorado for how we implement this, fulfill our obligation in the strategic plan to become trauma-informed over kind of a 4-year cycle. So that conversation started today, and I'm really excited about it. And then the last thing about capacity and energy is last year we invested a lot of energy into building the capacity around how can our community support the school district with the emotional, social, and physical needs of our students. And last Sunday night, we saw kind of that come to fruition where Mancos United had a really nice dinner, almost a gala event where they highlighted their progress. They had 67 people show up for an event at the Opera House, and they really talked about where they're going. And so that all started, right here at the school district with 2 board members coming and having a conversation with me and then giving us the power to move forward with that. So last year we invested many hours in the steering committee, and we saw that come to fruition. So fortunately now we have an outside group that outside of the school district providing tremendous benefits for our school district, our students, and our teachers. And that was a pretty special event. And so those are the areas I just wanted to highlight where we've really increased our capacity as an organization. And we did that by investing a lot of energy. And so a lot of great things that complement what's happening in the classroom. And that's my report, ma'am.
So, Todd,
Yes, sir.
going back to the CTE. So
Yeah.
We have 5 distinct, by next December, we're gonna have 5 distinct pathways.
Yes, sir.
So just going through our board packet earlier and the Career and Technical Advisory Councils.
Yes.
Each one of those CTEs is going to have its own advisory council.
That's not the case.
That's what the policy says.
Okay, well,
That's what BDFB says.
okay, so we have for CTE, they require one district policy for the CTE program where every program is represented.
So
One for the district, but if that's not consistent with our policy, then that's gonna be important that we either change our policy or we make sure to develop those things. Because I know welding has a cohort of outside contributors. Entrepreneurship does as well, and so does culinary. So far, healthcare does not have a cohort of adults supporting that program. And And of course, education does not either, because that doesn't start to the fall.
And B policies were provided for review.
Yeah, well, I'm
and
just,
so
that's
we're
why,
at the stage of review,
that's
which
why
is
I'm
great to pull
bringing
it
this
out,
up.
yeah.
Because it says the board also shall appoint an advisory committee for each career and technical education program provided by the district.
That's,
For
thank,
each one.
So we
thank you
need to
for
review
that.
that.
Yeah, we
And that's
re-
red line, right?
No, it's not.
Which one is it again?
It's, that part is not redlined. This is BDFB.
BDFB.
Yeah, but it's
Tech
in,
Advisory
it's in the
Council.
review. It's not in approval.
Right, no, it's not in
but
approval.
that's-
I want to see whether. or
I'm
not
just,
those are
all
right.
I'm getting at is, that's a lot of advisory people.
Yeah,
If
Yeah,
it's for each one, and is that something that Destry will take over as the administrative assistant for district departments? How will that, who's gonna coordinate to get information back? Because that just seems like it's an awful lot of stuff.
yeah, that's kind of one of those catch-22s.
it is.
It's great in the sense that we would love to have that community connection
Mm-hmm.
going on. And then the other side of the coin is, it's really challenging in dynamic to build that much
Yeah.
external support.
Sure it is. I
Yeah.
mean.
So
it's-
that would fall under, if we have a new position, which I'd like to advocate for, which is a CTE, CE, and grants director,
Right.
that person
That would be-
would manage
okay,
that.
yeah.
And
Just didn't
in,
get far enough along in the positions paper.
yeah, in getting those three programs stood up, we've already had a district-wide advisory council
Okay.
and have submitted those minutes as well for approval.
Well, we should consider.
Making it-
We should change that to
Yeah.
one.
Yes, no,
Right.
that's why I brought that up, because it's an awful lot of, asking for an awful lot of volunteer help.
Absolutely.
It is, and we have a small community.
Well.
And that's a real simple change since it's really in that just
Right.
one line.
So,
But you never know what could happen though, too. That advisory, because like just in entrepreneurship, we have 12 adults contributing their time. We have like 6 mentors. We have a board of advisors that will be the sharks for the Shark Tank. And then we have a community champion who's the town's economic development coordinator, who's the community champion for that program. So it is possible. So I hope we really grow our district-wide CTE advisory group to being a big group of like 30 adults.
anyway, that's all.
All right, good catch. Anybody else have any questions or comments? All right, thank you, Todd. Finance.
I really don't have a whole lot to report as we discussed in the board session or work session. Just know I'm working diligently on increasing salary schedules. I just want everyone to know that. And know that we will have contracts ready the week of the 22nd of May. So people will have those available to them. And we're building a budget right now on per pupil funding of $12,419. So I just wanted to kind of make that known and hoping that stays, yeah. So just know it's all budget right now and just crunching numbers. And then also just, there's the third quarter, quarterly reports and the investment in there. If anybody has questions, you can let me know on those. But other than that, just really don't have anything concrete to report because I don't know anything concrete, honestly.
Did you have anything?
No, the one thing that I would ask you to call out, and I was just trying to pull it up, my computer's not cooperating right now. Can you give us a round number, Chrissy, on one thing that really stood out for me this month was how much we're expending on tuition for these programs that we're talking about and for these dual enrolled kiddos that are taking concurrent enrollment. It's a significant number that I'm very proud of, and I think that our community should recognize the fact that we're extremely blessed to be able to accomplish. If I remember off the top of my head, because it's not in front of me, it was like $30,000. 50, okay, it's $50,000 that we expended this month on tuition.
Or this year.
This year, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But it's a significant amount of money, and a lot of that went out this month.
Yep, and we're gonna budget that same amount next year. We had a long conversation with Todd and Tiffany today, and that's what we'll need again next year for our district to
Do
move
we know
forward.
how many students take advantage of that?
Oh, my,
A lot. I don't even know.
probably near 80,
Yeah.
Wow, so
Maybe.
really that's,
80 or maybe to 100. somewhere, so
They're taking
probably
concurrent
2/3 of the high school
Yeah.
at least.
They're taking concurrent enrollment. Wow.
Yeah, and I think by the time they graduate, we'll be probably at 100% or really close to 100% of our students will have college credit, a career certification, and a high school diploma.
Wow.
So they'll have all three of those walking across the stage.
And those are, that's real dollars that
Yeah.
parents would be writing checks for,
Exactly.
you know.
Well, and if I could just add to that, that's only that's the net expense.
Mhm.
The gross expense is closer to 100,000, of which we get reimbursement back
Sure.
from Pueblo Community College or Ames Community
Ames is the one I
College.
saw this month.
For
We-
teaching those classes on.
We
Right.
get those, we get those fully reimbursed.
Mhm.
But we have also about 10 students that have really full schedules at like Fort Lewis College. And that's where we don't have, that's something we also needed to do as a school district to say, if we have advanced students and we can't fulfill their educational opportunities in-house, which is always our number one thing to do because we want to maintain that high school experience. But if they have to go outside, then we have a commitment to them and their families to cover that cost. And we have about 8 to 10 students that we're doing that with.
And do we have to pay full tuition for them?
You know, Fort Lewis College has been really good to us. Yeah, Dr. Trujillo does her best to minimize the tuition costs and has had that reduced down. It's a very complex answer because there's actually about 3 or 4 different tiers of what we pay in tuition.
Okay.
And just to go back, to clarify, the expenditure this month was close to 30,000 for this month. So that's where I
Right.
zeroed in on the big number. It's 50 overall, actually 100, but we get reimbursed. So
Yeah.
take the $100,000, 30,000 went out this month alone.
Yep.
For me as a parent, that for me is money that parents are not spending for those college
Yeah,
credits
it's
that
huge.
will help advance their kids just a little bit. Every little bit helps. That's just a little bit further. And, you know, talking about school budgets, it's a pretty
That's a
good
lot
chunk
for
of
our
change
budget,
out of a
yeah.
little school district like this.
It
So kudos to the kids that are doing it and the teachers that have gotten them there, and for our cultures to support and encourage that is pretty tremendous.
Yeah, this year we'll have about 800 college credits that our students will earn as being part of a student at Mancos School District.
Yeah, that's the most we've.
That's so
That's
cool.
275 classes, right?
Yeah,
It's 275
it's a
classes.
lot.
And how many kids are in our senior class alone?
Well, only about 36.
36.
But we have 157 high schoolers.
That's
And we
crazy.
about have, you know, at least 2/3 of them getting college
That's
credit.
a lot.
And some of these are like are really nice setups for like the 4-year university experience. And some of these are a really nice setup for a career.
Right.
You know, or that 2-year experience. So there's a really, you know, the EMR class, you know, that's a good 2-year track.
The other thing that I point out real quickly, because I know that some people care a lot about this too, and it is significant, is there is a significant spend this month. And it's funny for me because every time our sports teams do so well, it immediately follows that, oh, that costs some money, right? Because we're spending the money to send thank goodness that we're able to do it. But, you know, when those athletes go to those state tournaments or, you know, there's hotels and meals and buses and gas and it's a lot.
Yeah.
So, you
Yeah,
know,
we.
that's something that stands out.
We spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on sports.
Yep.
And that's just not us. That's a lot of school districts.
Yeah.
But it certainly is part of our culture to
Absolutely.
really affirm, you know, high quality competition to support our students in developing those skills and then celebrate it as a community.
Something to be proud of.
Well, and it's nice to bring it up that not only with sports, but look at what we're doing academically.
Correct. I mean, I
I
think they're all important.
Yeah, yeah, well, we just have the science fair kids.
Yeah,
go, and
those
they
kids
all
did great.
Did they keep us or
amazing.
what?
Heck, Toy's daughter was one of them.
That's right.
Wow. Congratulations, tell her. They were all amazing.
It's fun to watch.
Okay, any other questions with finance? All right, Shelley Wright, I think you kind of covered it.
Yeah, pretty much that.
Mhm. May 15th, 5 o'clock. All right, PBL 3-year training process.
Yeah, this is a big topic. This is one that's really gonna be critical. It's a critical topic for the Board of Education. The Board of Education shared a couple of months ago, we were talking about our PBL experience, and we started PBL 4 years ago. This is the 4th year. And we realized that throughout this process, we had some setbacks. We had some significant setbacks with the pandemic. And we had some significant setbacks with retention of staff at the secondary level. And as a Board of Education and as an administrative team, I think we realized we didn't progress as far as we really wanted to with how well we absorbed this identity and our practice of being a PBL school district. To be a PBL school district is something that the school district has said to the community. This is part of our unique selling proposition. When you send your kids here, we're a PBL school district. We're gonna teach your kids in a different way. It's not gonna be the rote learning style. It's gonna be learning by doing, because the research tells us, and we believe it, that kids learn deeper and longer by doing. And so part of the concern was when the board said, we need to see some data on how well we're performing. That's such the appropriate question of the Board of Education. And then they said, well, what are we gonna do to get better? And so we went back, and I have a proposal before you now. This represents a significant investment in PBL. It's about a $300,000 investment over 3 years. It's our way of saying, we're going to invest in a significant way in who and what we say we are. And this is one way to do it. And so Audion and I spoke with PBL Works over a series of meetings. We crafted a plan with them, and we reviewed it with the administrative team, and then it's now before the board for them to get your input on it. Now, this would be what I propose to the board to consider is, if we move forward with this, this is what we take out of the rainy day fund. This does not come out of the operating budget. This does not affect teacher compensation. This comes from the bucket of money that we accrued in the last 2 years during COVID. Our ending fund balance grew during COVID from about 2.1 million to about 2.8 million. And that's because as a school district, we did a lot fewer things than we typically do. The activities were shut down, and our ending fund balance grew. And that ending fund balance is where we say, well, we need to save money for a rainy day. And so now the question before the board is a very tough one. And certainly there's no easy answer here. And I think the board could come up with more than one terrific answer to this question. But it was our duty to put before the board a way to elevate PBL into prominence, so that we make a commitment to our students, our teachers, through extensive training, and to our community. How deeply are we going to embrace PBL? And is this the right way to do it? And is this the right time to do it? In speaking about this, it would lower our ending fund balance from 2.5 to about 2.2. And as kind of our what we would consider our worst case scenario. And I find that to be an acceptable level of risk for our community, knowing that 2 years ago, it was at 2.1. So, but as the board, you guys have a lot of responsibility. You have a stewardship over our ending fund balance. And so it's not going to be an easy decision. To spend $300,000 out of our savings should never be an easy decision. But if we're going to do it, this seems to be an appropriate place to invest it. I feel like we have the right people in place. We have a staff that I feel is going to stay and grow and are motivated by this instructional strategy. And I feel it gives us an opportunity to live up to what we aspire to be as a school district. So that's what's before you today.
Okay, this is the PBL work, teachers facing services scope of work.
Can I ask some clarifying questions to the
Sure.
presentation? And I read it all the way through. In each year, there are a certain number of workshops that are off-site with a certain number of attendees. Are those attendees meant to be our administrative professionals, our leadership principals, PBL coordinator? Is that what those?
Yes, they are.
Okay, now that's repeated year after year. So is that an assumption that the repetition with just those individuals becomes more increased as they grow? And what do we do with those people and or teachers who do turnover?
Yes, so that's why it's important for those to be the same people, because if there is turnover, then we could plug them in and they can go. And this plan also accounts for a certain level of losing of staff.
Teacher turnover.
Teacher turnover, knowing that no school district, people do retire and people do leave. And we also know that as a school district, you know, another conversation we're gonna have in the future is compensation and retention. And we believe that this is actually a good retention tool. But I think, you know, I think a fair person could say, well, why don't you just invest that money into compensation? And I think the reason you don't invest one-time monies in the compensation is because if we were to give every staff member an $8,000 bonus, then that's gone forever and we're building ongoing liability there.
Yeah.
With professional development, we believe this will be something that can contribute back to our system again and again and again until it becomes part of our DNA. And
The
that's
reason I asked the
process.
question, and I appreciate your purview there.
Mhm.
The reason I asked the question is that I'm mindful of the fact that just a few years ago, and granted, COVID did stomp on our parade, but it doesn't matter. We've already invested $500,000 into PBL. We know even if we invest $300,000 more, down the road, we'll be investing more likely because of the fact that our school will morph and change and turnover will happen. I am concerned with the investment of funds as to how we will hold our district accountable, those that are executing PBL, to put that type of funding behind a strategic initiative, something that the board years ago asked for based on research, based on a whole lot of work. We need I would want to have some kind of demonstration as a board member to know that it's actually happening. That it's not just, well, we did a project, therefore we are PBL. I want to know, are teachers and classroom, like those that are in the classroom, from paraprofessionals all the way up, are they actually grasping, engaging, and executing this after we've put that kind of money forth for this strategic initiative? Because I'll say it, I don't think we are in all aspects today. I think there's some in our district that are amazing at it. The preschool is absolutely PBL based, and others are definitely doing many, many projects, but again, it's a lot of money, and I just don't know. What's the check and balance, Todd? That's my
Yeah, that's
question.
I think that's a great question. Would you like me to answer that?
Or
Katie,
does
did you
anybody
want
else
to
have commentary?
sort of-
No, I just wasn't, I mean, embedded in 23, 24 was specific targets and measurable goals. So to me, that, like answers some of your questions, but I have hesitation because, not that I don't believe in PBL, it is, my hesitation is, do we collectively believe in PBL?
Nailed it.
That's good.
Culturally,
Everybody has to grasp and engage it for that kind of money.
and I don't think like you said, not a lot of our staff, but there's percentage of our staff that I don't think gets it. Or are not practicing it. They might get it, but are not practicing.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I looked through your reports and your 3-year plan.
Mhm.
And those are the types of plans personally, in my experience, that I'm used to seeing. Plans around professional development for administrators who are leading this in their building. Professional development and our teachers, K-12, which is what the board asked. And then follow-up from our administrators into our classrooms to ask the question, are these things happening?
On the regular.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then for them, hopefully, then our next step is, so then show us how this is happening. That's the question you're really asking.
Right, absolutely.
And we're certainly in control of that. We can say we wanna see this, or we wanna see that. There are certainly real questions about the commitment, and we've talked about that, the commitment the district has to PBL. I mean, those are legit questions that, as a board, we've talked about. The board as a whole, I believe, all 5 of us are very committed to PBL. We think it's a great strategy. We think it's a way to engage our students and to help them feel that they're part of their own educational experience. So from that perspective, I am 100% supportive of the plan. It's a clear plan. Now, as a board, we need to monitor that as we go along into next year. That's our responsibility with our superintendent. The other thing, I mean, the only thing that I'm nervous about is taken from our reserves.
Yeah.
We've talked about earlier, taken from our reserves possibly because of pathways and other types of things that might affect that. So as a board, we really need to really keep track of our reserves and how much we're going to take out of there. But I don't see any other way we can do this, invest in our district, other than taking from our reserves.
Correct, and again, like you said, the worst case scenario, even given the other $200,000 thing that we were talking about earlier, this still leaves our reserves where we were 2 years ago.
Right.
I mean, it's not like I'm not saying we have excess fat to cut off in there, but we have fair and sound reserves, even if we do this. And I'm a big proponent of the program, but I also do want to see tangible, documented results that show that this is being done and it's changing our culture within our entire school.
I would recommend that perhaps we can look at what that looks like. Does that, are we looking at that from, actual projects being done, or can we incorporate a piece of the PBL execution into the evaluation of staff and change our evaluation?
Yeah.
I mean, if it's that critically important, then every individual to embrace that culture, it needs to be held accountable to embrace the culture in the way that we're asking them to embrace the culture. And if this training gets them from here to here, then I'm fully supportive of it as well. But only if there's some accountability and measurable results. And if this works, because I remember this from years ago, hearing those, that growth and achievement, those test scores, those NWEA, all of that stuff was growing in these schools that were really fully embracing PBL. Because at the time I was concerned as a parent, like, oh, you're not going to use a textbook. Oh, but it's proven that the kids still grow when they're being taught that way. So we should see it in our scores, but we should also see it in some way of accountability to the district staff.
Well,
That's what
and
I would ask for.
And I would just like to remind the board that the reason why this current 3-year plan has been brought to light is because we do have a monitoring report on the strategic plan, embedded in the strategic plan. So the process is working. And so through the monitoring report, we realized that we are A, not on target, B, we spent a lot of money, and C, we needed to see this in front of us. So I would say the next step for me is to see how what you have brought to us can then be embedded into the strategic plan. And maybe, the board, when we look at a board retreat, we put some parameters on there as like, we would like to see that reviews, staff reviews have elements of this. I would also encourage you when you're doing your work with Dr. Gabbro, is that there's pieces of this embedded in that
Right.
too, so that when we're
Absolutely.
pulling data in, that we have. Oh, that's true. So I think we have the bones of what you're, to monitor your concerns. I think we just need to make them much more,
Maybe robust.
yes.
Lay it out, actually,
Yes.
like write it down, lay it out.
Yeah.
And to your point, that may be, retreat work that the board can kind of put their hands on, and we're all saying the same thing.
What's that?
Could PBL works help?
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah,
Oh, great,
So,
okay.
yeah, they really could.
Yeah.
And that's why we had these conversations with them, because we were looking at, it was great to have these conversations with them from my lens, but also from Audion's lens. Because I was looking at it as we were building the plan as a system. And Audion was looking at it as a classroom. And so it really helped to have both lenses there, because as a system, we have to prove that this is working, and it also has to be proved out in every classroom. And so that's why the professional development has to be comprehensive that way.
And I would just be mindful that, as Emily pointed out, that there is on-site coaching for the leadership team, that if we could move that to remote coaching, like say if we have no staff turn, just not that I would just like us to look at where we might be able to like maybe economize.
I have to agree, and I was, Katie and I were on the board when we did the strategic plan, and PBL was adopted and we loved it. And then COVID, it just seemed like it went on a back burner. It didn't go away, but it went on a back burner. But Toy's presentation today proved that it worked as well. So it's happening in small little places, but not across the board. And I am like you, concerned that there's not buy-in by at least half of our staff, and it has to be all or nothing. So I don't know if that's up to you, Todd, to make sure everybody's on board with that, because it's a culture change. So
Todd, have you gotten any feedback on this professional development plan from anybody else?
Only the admin team. I felt like I felt like it had to pass the scrutiny of Audion in building it, with the provider. And then it had to pass the scrutiny of the admin team before it came here, because I knew if the admin team wasn't supportive of this, then even if the board was, we would have an operational challenge. So the admin team has seen it, we talked about it, and we were enthusiastic about it. We were also concerned about the cost. And so that's why we also had to talk about, well, would it be coming out of general fund and affect compensation? And the answer was a clear no, it wouldn't. This is not in any way related to compensation. And then also, would we be willing to make a commitment to this kind of structure? And the admin team was, I had all three building leaders there, Chrissy, myself, and Audion, and we were confident to move this forward to the board.
Okay.
It is quite an investment on our kids, and I think that's how we have to look at it, is do we want to make this investment in them?
But we're also talking about curriculum later, so they also go hand in
Yes,
hand.
it does.
And all of it costs, and
Way much.
it's just a tough topic.
It is.
It's not an easy decision.
Spending out of reserves is scary.
So what would you direct me in my next steps? Because one of the things is, I would like to bring this forward to the board in May for a possible action item. I would also like to share the plan, of course, with staff and do sort of a Google survey around that also, and bring that information back to
That
the
would be
board.
helpful.
That would be good.
And then I'd like to, at that same time for May is had some conversation with the board on how it could be impacted in the strategic plan.
Yeah, I would also, if time permits, I think, I know that you have a kind of calcified schedule of topics with DAC, but this might be something that we bring to our accountability.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, yeah. More eyes on it, the better.
So continue
Okay, so-
moving forward in those.
Yes.
And so by May, I'll bring this back for additional consideration. And this gives the board also a month to think about it too, because it's a weighty decision.
Yeah, and I think all of the board is in support of it. Of course, we're cautious with spending the money, so that will give us the time to look at that as well. You did some, a little more work on it. So bring it back as a possible action item next month.
Great. And I'll also have some data from staff. And I'll do my best, and I'll talk with board members too, to see if they could direct me if there's anything else they want to do with the strategic plan, but Ms. Keo Bope really brought it up clearly that the strategic plan is working with the objective reports, because it really lifted up this as an important issue. And of course, I'll get it to DAC.
And that will,
No
and
tea.
that will really help our work when we do go to.
Yeah,
do
To
that
do the
too.
summer work, yeah, for
Mhm.
sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, Education Solutions Task Force.
Okay, so this is another big one. So the board, tasked me at the end of last year with finding solutions to retention and recruitment. And really the big issue there was compensation. And as you know, we went through an extensive process of collecting data. We got the help of a really bright person in town, an anthropologist by the name of Chelsea Lunders, who we built a report. We had board presentation, DAC presentation, 2 community presentations, staff presentations, and all that led up to our first launch of the Education Solutions Task Force. That met last week. We had about 28 people there, and this was an incredible cross-section of the community. It was by no means district heavy. It was people I had never met before, very, very caring, bright people. We divided into 4 groups, 4 committees, which make up the task force: the Attainable Housing Committee, the Community and State Advocacy Committee, the Administrative Solutions Committee, and the Revenue and Compensation Committee. And each of these committees has 2 leaders in place. And these leaders are having committee meetings and subcommittee meetings as we speak.
Yeah, one of them was tonight.
They're happening, they're happening all over the place.
They are ready to move.
Each of these groups is really energized and doing things.
House
So-
is meeting Friday.
Oh.
Yes, and I'm hoping that Tim will be one of the major leaders for attainable housing because of his district knowledge and his industry knowledge. And then the other major leader for the attainable housing is Jason Armstrong, the economic development coordinator. The leaders for revenue and compensation are Dr. Mary Marable. She's the number 2, and the number 1 is Sven McNeil. And they're doing a great job with that. I'm leading the admin solutions along with Rebecca Goslin. And we're addressing issues vibrantly. And then the community and state advocacy, Andrew Saletta and others are leading that. And they're reaching out to
There was a call on that one too. I can't remember who it was.
City Rose was
Yeah,
helping out a
City,
lot
yeah.
with that one. And then also that group is already getting information to reach out to Representative Kathy Kipp around that initiative that you were talking about, Mr. Figueroa.
And there was also Sherry, can't remember her last name. Yeah, anyway, she knows Barbara McLaughlin and she was going to, because I've sent letters to her, emails to her, and so she and I are to get together to make sure that she visits the school.
So the whole group is meeting on May 4th from 4:30 to 5:30. The launch was very successful. Now we'll see what meeting number 2 is. So I encourage everyone listening to come, and I also encourage the board to be there if your schedule allows.
What's the date again?
Thursday, May 4th from 4:30 to 5:30. And we've also are providing childcare in this room. If anyone, would like to, we'll have someone taking care of the kiddos, so you can go to those important meetings. These things are very dynamic so far. So
We got a county representative there too.
the economic development coordinator was there, and the superintendent from Dolores School District was there.
Was the one that, the gal that she couldn't be on the taxes things because she works with taxes in the county. But she was on the one that I listened to.
Yes, she's the economic coordinator for the county, Jessica Thurman.
There you go.
Very, very bright young lady. So so we'll see how next goes, and we'll see, but this is moving in the right direction, and we'll see. I'm very pleased with how well it's going. So really, we have one major group with 4 committees that are driving it.
So Todd, I would just encourage you to, send out through all the various different communication channels. I would say also send out notification as to the outside, the folks' emails that we've brought in from linkage meetings and such. I think that would be really important because I was very impressed by the group, and I was just an observer. I was really impressed by the cross section of people, as you mentioned, but there's room for more hands. And so just making sure that everyone knows that this is happening. It was talked about at church. It was like, it's exciting. Yeah, I was really impressed.
I was too, very impressed. All right, anything else? All right, we're gonna skip down to E, board handbook.
Oh, that's
Wanna take that?
okay. Yes. In front of you, yours should have a big clip on it. On the front page is we called it the onboarding packet when we came out of the board retreat, but I think now we're just gonna call it the board handbook. But this was, the initial kind of scope of work that we decided on the top. We haven't gotten to the one sheet for prospective board members, but essentially that'll be pulled out of this. So I think instead of just like waxing on about it, if you guys, there's a couple pieces that are not in here, and I have yet to number and provide a table of contents because we might be moving things around. I'd like you to kind of take a look at it. There is no linkage plan in here. That's something that would have to be written. I think that could be pretty easy. Emily, I think I might have some sort of write-up about our linkage plan that came from the board retreat that I might unearth too. So that's missing. At some point, we talked about a mentor plan or information, but we have not discussed that since. So I'd say cross that out.
I think also that makes more sense as it all evolves, right?
Yeah. It might be something, I will keep this front document as kind of a roller, that maybe someday we add, if need be, okay? Think, Pam and Tim, you'll see your conduct, chain of command, and attendance, rules of officer. I actually took the liberty of pulling a few like extra things that kind of reiterate what you guys pulled, but maybe in a different format, which I think some people like gravitate towards. We can do that or not do that.
That's that other org chart I was
Oh,
telling
yeah,
you about,
cool.
which came with the
Yes.
strat plan.
Okay. So those are in there. You'll see the key dates, all of those in their strategic plan. This is not in here. My thought is that we would have it separate with the
Because of the work.
monitoring reports.
Yeah.
And so let's discuss that. We'll pull that together after the retreat is my thought. Board policies are not in here. These are the policies, but you will see kind of basically a list line, whatever. You'll see them here. So my thought is that we would put them here, but then pull them out, unless you want them embedded in this as well. We could have a second like packet that just has those B policies.
Having a list is fine, and then we have it all online.
Perfect, okay.
Yeah,
Some
I'd say-
people might like paper, so I just wanna, sometimes you adhere to something more if it's in
Yeah,
here.
I like seeing the list.
Okay, great,
Yeah,
okay, great.
I do too.
Okay, so then that's there. So we won't add board policies. I'll cross that out because we have the list. I just talked about the strat plan. It's just in here, we'll just make a note that each new member will get one of the blue books, the updated edition of the Colorado school laws. We discussed, some of us have this, some of us want it. We'll make sure that it's available to any prospective or new board members. And then that covers like sunshine laws, communication and confidentiality, rules of board versus roles of superintendent are in there. I will say, I have this unfinished Mancos RE6 organizational chart that I'd like Todd, if you could even like put that together. I think that's a kind of helpful to folks. So if you would do that.
And that one came with the strat plan.
And then this came with
That's the one that was given to us with our strat plan, but it doesn't go as deep as the
Oh,
one
yeah,
in the
yeah, I
book.
remember that one, yeah.
But
okay,
it
well,
involves DAC.
okay,
Yeah.
so I'm gonna get that to you. So we can plus Emily's, okay? And then so I think where we stand today is that if you can review this, we'll put it on a discussion item for May. If that's possible, if we have any concerns, we can email back and forth. If you say, I don't think this needs to be in there, this needs to be in there, all of that. So we can do, and then we'll probably need to adopt it formally.
Put it as a discussion and.
Well, let's have a
We can do the
discussion.
discussion as an action item, because we can.
Let's
We can do
do a
that.
discussion and following maybe another month. do an
We can
action.
always,
In June,
we
we
can
have
adopt in
time.
June. We
Yeah.
do have time. We need it before August.
August,
Right, that's what I'm saying, we need to take a little time.
Yeah.
I skimmed through it, some of it looks potentially superfluous, some of it looks really good.
thank you.
The duties of the board's in here twice, you just have to figure out which form you like. So, yeah.
Dealer's choice. I don't, like you guys can decide. Some of it is really pulled directly from the CASB handbook, which it ought to be. It's just this is our own kind of presentation to ourselves. Like these are the really important pieces of it. Oh, one last Oh, did I say? Yeah, there is no linkage plan. I will work on that piece. And I will forward that to you via email. How's that?
Yeah, we can certainly put that piece together.
Yeah.
Again, that I think will morph and change as the
Yeah.
years
Yeah.
progress, but
Yes.
we can put a baseline in there.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you might just put something pretty generic about it, because you can't put down organizations and stuff you don't know yet. That's to be decided.
So this is our first stab, and I think
Anyway,
it's something.
place to go.
Yeah.
Place to start.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. All right, board linkage. Victor, you were the one that had it the farthest back, so can you give a short report about what you did, because you met with students?
Yes, so in March, we had a board linkage with our students, and we were seeking feedback from our students as it relates to their school experience. You know, and we really had two ways to ask for their feedback. One way was to provide a survey to all the high school students. And we asked them specific questions. We had about 23 questions, 23 to 25 questions. And that was provided to 9th and 12th graders. And then the other way was to meet with 10 students that was selected from various grades with, you know, they came to us from diverse backgrounds and experiences within our Mancos school system. And really what we're trying to get from their perspective is their experience right now in high school, but their experience through elementary and middle school. Just some feedback about how they felt about their educational experience and I'll make a school district. I have to say that, first of all, the surveys were just an amazing amount of great information, because these are the, you know, this is why we get up every day. This is why we come to work every day. It's our students, and to get their feedback about how they felt about how they're receiving their education and what we could do to improve it, what we're doing right, what we can change, was amazing. I sent out all the board members that information. Todd was heavily involved with putting this together, and his administrative team as well. And we had Todd there, I was there, and Mr. Dolly was also there as a teacher rep. And the students that we met with were just amazing students, honest, forthright, fun, and incredibly insightful. And so I'm just going to give you a short, brief review of what kind of feedback they gave us. There's much more detail in the report that I provided to all board members, and certainly if the public would like to see that, that would be available for them to see.
I think it was in the board packet for last month.
It wasn't in the board packet last month,
Wasn't?
so I was hoping I would see it this month, but I didn't see it in the packet.
Okay, we'll make sure.
So
we
I'm
get it.
hoping that we can at least get it on to,
Yeah, I know you sent it.
yeah, I know that. So anyway, students said to us that they would like to see an extended lunch. They said that lunch is really short, particularly high schoolers, because a lot of them leave campus and it's real difficult for them to get back in a safe and effective way. So, so they really felt like they really like to see, even if we do, I mean, what they mentioned was more like a 10-minute increase in lunchtime. They also expressed that they'd like to see a shorter A and B block except in certain cases. There are classes that they felt like needed to be as long as they are because they felt very engaged and involved in the types of things they were doing there, but they felt other classes could be shorter. So they wanted us to take a look at that as a possibility. They gave us feedback around having a middle school counselor for social and emotional types of supports. It felt like that would be helpful for them as they thought about middle school and as they thought about high school. They also felt like the building needed to be sure that it had handicap accessibility. They said that, you know, that there were a couple times throughout the years where kids were in wheelchairs and it was difficult to get into the building without going all the way around to a certain area where they could come into the building. So they really felt
But
like,
it is ADA. There is an elevator in here.
yeah, there
Well,
is,
it
but
is
I think it's,
accessible, but you
yeah,
do
it's
have
just
to
not
go to the
convenient.
right. Yeah, it's not
it's
convenient.
not
But
convenient,
most
but
of these are operational
Yeah.
things anyway, that are not really involved with the board.
yeah.
So,
However, students also would like to, they just indicated that they wouldn't like to see an extended day, like adding on to the day and increasing the time to leave. So if we're leaving at 10 after 4, they didn't want to see us leaving at 4:30.
so
They said
therefore,
the
that's
day
a-
was long
lunch-
enough.
the
Yeah.
lunch hour then is a new
Yeah.
point. They're not gonna be willing to give us more time. So that kind
There
of
might be
costed
other ways.
itself out.
There possibly other ways to do that. They
Again-
also said
again,
that,
that's an operational thing for Todd and his group.
yeah, the students supported PBL and career pathways. However, the majority spoke about attending four-year universities as first-time college students for their families. A
That was
lot of
surprising.
discussion, and that, you know, again, that was on the survey, but it was also during discussion. And I'm reviewing this because it's in both places that we heard these comments that I'm mentioning. They also spoke about the length of, they just talked about dress code and that we just need to get more consistent around boys and girls and how they're treated, as well as how consistent we are about the length of anything we're wearing, whatever that is. So, so they just wanted us to, again, give us some feedback around that.
Uniforms.
Yeah.
I
And then,
should-
and then I just want to say that Todd gave us some information that, you know, there was already plans in the work around shortening A and B block for next year anyway.
That's what Adion was speaking about
Mhm.
earlier today, was putting advisory back in and putting that between A and B block, so that that'll really support the ICAPS for all students, individual career readiness plan. And that'll shorten up the A and B blocks just a little bit also.
There you go.
Yeah, absolutely. And as Pam indicated, a lot of this is operational, but the ones that aren't are really the middle school counselor.
Mhm.
Something for the board to really consider as it relates to the needs of students at that level. And then supporting PBL pathways and four-year universities. You know, again, how do we support the four-year university concepts? We have some things in place already, as Todd talked about this year, as it relates to students that are going to two-year, four-year colleges while they're in high school.
You had some great
Awesome,
information.
concurrent enrollment,
Percentages
those
there,
types of
yeah.
things. Obviously, we want to support that and continue that, but as a board, we want to make sure that those things stay in place. And if there's other things we could be doing, what are those things and can we afford them?
Do we know what percentage, Victor, I think you mentioned kids that were hopeful and planning on attending four-year institutions, but who had not had previous family members go. So I assume that they're involved in these students are involved in the TRIO program, or do we know kind of where that cross section is?
I don't know. I don't know the numbers. I just know we have that really active TRIO program with,
Yeah, I did hear that, you know, one of the things TRIO does offer is on-site college tours, but I also heard that the number of students that they're taking might be smaller this year. Am I off on that?
No, I
Yeah.
heard that Rose told us that just for budget purposes.
And so it really does beg the question, is that all of a sudden we have these kids who may not be eligible, who are maybe in trio, but may not be eligible to go on college tours. And I think it's something that we as a district need to look at. If kids do not have an experience on campus, and have that insight or go to a Friday program, then I think, but they want to have that, I think we're not preparing them. They're not, and so I'd like to see some, maybe some conversation about how we're getting kids to have these four-year college experiences, or possibly two-year, or just any of the things that they want to do.
Right.
Yes.
So it was a great experience. Really enjoyed talking to the kids. I think that as a board, again, that when we do outreach to our community, we want to make sure we do our outreach to our students.
Well, Katie, to your point, we were just notified recently by CSU that we've been selected to be one of the school districts to send a group of kids to CSU, send 5 kids to CSU during the summer for a drones camp. And they'll live on campus,
Wow.
live in a dorm, eat dorm food, and then they'll also get the 107 license at the same time. So I'll be taking that group June 10th through June 17th.
That's
And
awesome.
we're in the process of finding those kiddos, and that they want us to really try to find kids that would otherwise not have that opportunity. So that's all, we'll be going through a selection process for that.
Yeah, and I just want us to be mindful that we have, that there are, we have students and families who really are deserving of having these opportunities that they can't fulfill themselves. But I also want to be mindful that we're not leaving kids out in the middle.
Yeah,
Mhm.
agreed.
Yeah,
So,
that's a hard one. You know, Casby presents a opportunity for us to take students to the Capitol. And we've never, well, we did it, gosh, what was it, 5 or 6 years ago? When we had a group of students that went and talked to the legislatures and I think it was in the Senate, anyway, about school testing, about it wasn't CMAS, it was something else at that time.
CSAP.
CSAP, there you go. And that was a real positive experience for those kids. And Casby has a day for students specifically lined out, but you're not required to go on that day. You can pick any day, and a sponsor here can take a group of kids, however many want to go, to the Capitol building also, spend a couple of days and going through that process too, which was real eye-opening. And yeah, it would cost a little bit of dollars, but I think that there's a cost share with Casby. We'll have to check to make sure, because it's been a while since I've been involved with that program. But, and also, as you guys know, at the convention, the big one they have in December, there's school groups that go and perform and everything else. There's art that's submitted. There's so much more we could be doing with our students to get them outside experiences as well as campus experiences.
and maybe somehow the board takes the lead on that, and maybe we embed that into the strategic plan, or like, what are we going to do to provide these
there you
leadership
go.
opportunities for kids? Because I think about like maxing out staff. Maybe this is a place that we step up to the plate and our leaders ourselves. So yeah, I'd like to see that put into the appropriate objective, which I could not name right now.
I'm writing this down. Did you know which objective you were pointing to?
No.
That's what she said.
Wherever it
Okay.
fits.
I'll look it up.
Yeah.
We have that piece. Oh, good idea. And Victor, I brought up your report. What's the best way to handle this? To put it in the next board packet, or to make sure that the public has access to it?
It was in,
It was in March. So it should have been in March's packet, and it's not in this month, so we're too late, 2 months if we go to May.
but it was in there, I think.
Was it?
No,
Was it?
It
he
wasn't.
sent
Oh,
it
it
to us.
wasn't?
I
directly.
just sent it
Oh.
to you guys. I did
Yeah.
not put it, it's not been in any.
And I'm
board
sorry,
or
that-
And
public
I'm thinking
arena.
of the staff feedback. that
And
we
that
saw
was
this
my
month.
overlook, because that should have been done in March, but. sorry
So
about that.
my linkage report was not public either, so maybe we can remedy this by putting them all together
Okay.
into, like, because we're almost done, right? Yeah,
Just
and put
some
them all
on,
together.
just Put it all, link it all
Oh,
on the
cool.
website.
Yeah,
If we can put it on the
Yeah.
website,
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
under something on the
On the
website.
website.
board linkage.
Okay, that's a good idea.
Mine's the 18th of next week.
So, do you want, was Todd in on this one, or was it just
Todd?
us? When you send it to us? Todd, you got it?
Yes,
Yeah, you got it. Okay. Okay, good idea. Good solution there, guys. All right. Oh, Emily, your linkage report.
So, we were able to meet with the town board. We did a work session with them, and that happened on the 17th, I think it was. 12th, sorry, it's the 17th today. It was the 12th of April, at the town hall. And we were allotted an hour of time. I think we went a little bit over our time, but it was all good conversation. And we're able to, it was Mr. Cordray, Pam, you attended, Travis Greenlee attended, as well as myself. And so the exercise of this is who we are, this is what we do, which some of that I actually thought was really relevant, because although you assume people know what an innovative district really means, right? Or what a strategic plan even is, the fact that we could kind of explain that further and dive deeper into what we had been working on and what we had put together and the why behind that was really critical. We really did spend some time pointing out our project-based learning and our pathways program. It was my personal thought that we had quite a bit of interest from those town board members in that particular piece. Figuring out that the school was serving the needs of those kids that maybe wanted a trade versus going to college, or those, we also talked extensively about concurrent enrollment, those that were able to get a little bit ahead in terms of going to college or coming out of the district with both, having both in their hands by the time they graduated. So that was great to point out that we were really working very hard on that. We spent the majority of our time talking about the school's challenges. And then also just general conversation. Obviously, the compensation of our staff being number one. We did have someone from the town who raised their hand to start attending those meetings, Heather Alvarez. So I do believe that she'll be part of that community. And I'm not sure whether or not anybody else, decided to come or was a part of it. Jason, of course, was there and is aware of these pressures and challenges that the district is facing. So we certainly had quite a bit of discussion related to that. That quickly rolled into the conversation around a school resource officer. And the town has certainly, I think if I were to put a personal purview on it, in the past, it's been kind of well, let's just do this. And I think we came away from this meeting with the understanding that there is a lot of conversation to be had and a lot of planning and a lot of community involvement and education in figuring out what does that really mean and how are we as two boards going to work together to potentially accomplish that. Not only do we have to figure out the path towards training, the presence, the hiring, the shared duties between the town and the school district itself, because school's not in session 24/7, 365, physical office, all of those challenges were brought forth, which gave all of us more of a clear understanding of this isn't just a check the box, it's done. Now there's legislation that may be affecting this particular need. and it may push us to move faster, but regardless of how fast we move, there are certain steps we need to take. So coming away from this particular meeting versus the last meeting we had with the town, it was a much more amicable, conversational, this is how we're going to proceed, let's keep talking, let's really look at this from a broader base perspective. At least that was my perception. But certainly, you know, the active need would be helpful to both. And then we also invited a member of town to the town board or the town staff, I think, either one, to join the Safety and Security Council, which is meeting next week. So I do believe that Travis will have somebody there from the town, which is a great crossover. And then I know that Jason Armstrong is currently working on community pathways, and I'm sure he'll be at the housing meeting as well.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of crossover, which was really kind of cool to see. We did discuss the water usage and the 100% increase in water costs, water and sewage costs. I was surprised to find out that the school is not their number one consumer, but we're in the top 5, I believe they said. I don't think they said we're number 1, they just said we were in the top 5. And that the explanation, and it was a little hard to talk about. It wasn't an easy conversation, but essentially the way we understood it was the town has been, their rates have been raised, if you will. The cost of their equipment, water treatment plants, et cetera, had to be upgraded, and they're basically passing along. Cost was their explanation.
And they have made a business out of the water. The water is a
Separate
business,
entity, correct.
and it's a for-profit business.
Correct, it is. However, they did go back and say that those additional fees, they were passing along at this stage. And all we did, in order to not get too far in the weeds, was say, we've received 100% increase. It's a significant amount of money. It's enough money that it takes care of that SRO conversation. And now that sets us back further. So we tried to kind of let them know, you know, these types of things impact these decisions over here. Can we keep communicating about this? And that was where we left it. And that's the best I think we can do right now, because we're not going to understand water in less than an hour, much less 5 minutes. But we do need to have the conversation. Maybe you will, but you didn't take the town linkage meeting. So you can go to the next one. So we just need to keep having the conversation. And Chrissy, we should start, you know, maybe graphing that or charting that in a way that's a little bit more understandable by the greater good, if you will, because it's a lot of line items. But I do think we'll continue to talk about that, and that's a good thing. Also, we brought up the fact that we had rectified all of our zoning concerns, so that was a big win for us. Yeah, it was like, check, great job, Todd.
He can do his job.
Great job, Todd.
Instead of when he was inherited. right?
Yeah. And then we, you know, again, there was a lot of positive communication in regard to further, a further relationship that's much closer and, you know, work with the ideal of working together towards some of these needs, not just goals, but needs of the district and the town as a community. And so I foresee having meetings more regularly, and I don't know where that's going to
Something you
land.
need to do every year.
For sure, every year, and maybe even more often,
Yeah.
depending
Yeah.
on what really comes about, you know, as we
I feel
watch.
like they listened this time, where before I'm not sure that they were listening.
Yeah, I felt like everybody was listening,
Yeah.
whereas, you know, that first meeting, we just had there were a lot of unresolved, I mean, the fence thing, and, you know, there was a lot of emotion in the first meeting.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like this particular meeting, there was a lot more realistic expectation, right? Like, none of this is gonna change next week. And we all have the pressures of whether it be legislation or town need or school need. But what was really great was that everyone acknowledged, especially in regard to the SRO piece, that it was a very specialized piece. This was not just hiring an officer to take up residence on campus. This is very specific with very specific parameters and trainings. And we don't know yet what that's going to look like. And if it can even be accomplished, it's a good chunk of money. So that's
Yeah,
what we're-
and I think I hope that within those conversations that making sure that there is a lot of public comment, a lot of staff comment.
Yep.
Because, we've all been present and privy to this conversation prior, and without all of those buy-in and some real data behind effectiveness and what it's gonna look like.
Even some board members and others to go and visit schools that have successful SROs, and maybe those that have dropped theirs, I don't know. You know, to get some data.
Yeah.
Data points from here. Okay, good. And I will have the next linkage with our nonprofits. I did attend a nonprofit, kind of like a summit last week. And there were 33 out of the 40 nonprofits in our area represented. I didn't realize we had that many, number one, there's a lot. And they were excited that the school was there. I just thought, I want to get this group, get to know them. I didn't think they'd have any opinion on the school, but they were excited. This group, at least half of them would really like to be involved with the school. So I got some great names. One of them I gave to Todd that has built the CD program over in Cortez and worked the gardens over in Bayfield. And he started with Sarah doing the school to garden that we're involved with now. Nice guy. But anyway, I'm hoping to have Chelsea sending out a mass email to them tomorrow. So Todd and I are getting together and trying to get the details of this May 2nd. I know it'll be around noon at the Opera House, and we're gonna hopefully provide just a light lunch. That really seemed to bring them out. So I thought if I could get at least half of those 33 there to the table, that would be a really coup, I think. So anyway, we'll let you know the next board meeting how that goes. And if anybody'd like to attend, didn't put down the time yet because I wasn't sure. I know you gave me your schedule, but so we'll get a time when we get together.
Probably the lunch hour.
Okay, well, that's what I thought, that I didn't know whether 11:30 to 12:30 or, what your time frame was, so.
And what was the date again?
Pardon?
What was the date again?
May 2nd is a Tuesday. Chelsea was the one that pulled the summit together, and she had polled them for the best day and time. And so I'm using her data. All right, policy review. Oh, there's a lot of,
There's a lot of them. So this is the first,
Yeah.
first
we're not adopting
review.
any.
We're not adopting any. I do have some comments on a few. I don't know if you guys do, that I'd want to maybe
I
just
sent
point
mine to
out.
you,
You
but
did?
we can, yeah, just about on the board member time, or the board meeting times are listed in there. Oh, sorry.
Okay, does anybody want to bring up any commentary at this point or
I'll look at mine.
anything specific? I'd also point out that there are two policies that you were provided that we adopted and never have had before. They are BDFA. So I would encourage your review of these, BDFA and BDFD. Those two were CASB provided and adopted policies that we had never had before.
Dave, what's that second?
BDFD and BDFA.
I would like to take a
One of your
little time to
advisory
go.
committees you brought up.
Yeah, and I've got that noted too. So,
I would like a little more time, mostly because I just got back to town
sure,
a couple days ago and I've skimmed a lot of this, but I didn't go into a lot of detail.
of course.
Cause I had like 4 of the board packets to look at too.
Well, your BDFB, I've made a note about, the BDFB has that line in there about advisory committees for each career and technical education program.
We just want
We'll need to
go
take a
over
look at that, okay?
Yeah, we just want to go over
On, I'll just keep going here to
And the one that I had is BE, school board meetings. And it just says that will be held on the third Monday of each month.
I have that
at 7
too.
PM. It should be 6 PM.
Right,
And then, yeah,
we'll have to adjust that.
and if that's okay with the board, I mean, that's what we've done. We've moved it up an hour.
Just to give you a little purview, the BDFD is a policy in regard to establishing a district safe and drug-free schools advisory council. It's another council.
There's a bunch of councils in there.
There are.
Yeah,
Oh,
And it's
and,
not-
apparently it is.
all right, and
It's not
the,
required by law.
another one that needs to.
In accordance with federal law and as a recipient of funding under the Safe and Drug-Free Schools and Communities Act, the Board of Education shall appoint a district safe and drug-free schools advisory
It was
council
just recommended.
in accordance with.
Hmm.
Okay.
So, yeah, the piece that I always just want to always be mindful of is that some of these we have to adopt to get funds.
Correct.
And if Mr. Cordray, not to sound like mercenary, but if we could get, if there are ones as we roll through that you're like, we get funding because we adopt this.
Uh-huh.
I want, that's to me like the first red flag.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cause I like those line items.
I have some concern with BEAA. And Pam, you pointed out BE, and I've noted that change.
Okay.
BEAA is also in regard to electronic participation in school board
Yes.
meetings. The way it is currently written, and I will be completely transparent here because I'm gonna be the one this affects.
Or it has, you can only do it so many meetings.
A board member may attend and participate by electronic means in a maximum of 2 board meetings per calendar year. For me, that's problematic.
And I'm surprised they have it in there because with COVID, they opened it up to what we could do. what
It
we
says
need to.
unless otherwise approved by the board, and there's quite a bit more language. I would just ask that we review that paragraph.
Yeah,
Because I think we can amend it a bit to still be fair.
I think-
There's also language about failure to attend
Uh-huh,
completely so many meetings, and that's important.
uh-huh.
But we need to agree on the number.
Yeah.
And so that's worth looking at again.
There was another policy though that we passed during COVID. Gosh,
Well, all
I know
policy
it
is
was-
here.
It was the old, remember we passed one, because before COVID, you couldn't do anything electronically.
It's the
And then-
BEDA
It's the one I'm talking
dash
about.
E. No, it's a
But
separate.
that's
Oh, yeah,
not the
okay,
one
you're
that
right.
we wrote, that we had. This is worded differently. Because we didn't have any, you could only do 2 meetings. We
Well-
didn't have any of that.
Well, remember, here's what happened. You probably didn't. I don't know for sure, but we took the old and the new and we cross-referenced them and redlined them.
And the
So
old one we did wasn't
unless-
in there.
unless it's a brand new policy.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. I
So,
know we voted on it,
okay,
but anyway. Okay, the other one that's gonna need to be updated is BEC, executive
that was my
sessions,
next
because-
one. It's
because
got a
of the
lot of new.
legislation.
And it's it's also got a lot of new in it.
Yeah,
But when that new legislation comes down, CASB will notify us and then we will
And-
adopt it
and
there.
that should be coming out because they have adopted, I think it went to this. Shoot, House or the Senate, one of them, anyway, today or Friday, and the other one, the other House or Senate has already passed it, so it's a done deal.
Okay, there's a paragraph in BEDA, if you guys want to take notes. There's a paragraph in BEDA I'm concerned about. It's the district shall maintain a list of persons who, within the previous 2 years, have requested notification of all meetings, et cetera, et cetera. It's this very odd paragraph to me, that I want to just make sure that we all acknowledge. The notice of virtual meetings is in there, that's fine.
Yeah, that is a weird, I mean, what does it?
And then on BEDB, which is agenda, prior to, we had our agenda in there, and this, of course, took it out. So if we want to put our agenda format back in, we need to agree upon that being back into BEDB. So there are a few, here that are going to require our attention, but nothing that's anything crazy, different.
Remember, we changed Katie, you and I and Brian were working on the agenda. We were trying to remember, not get it so repetitive. I don't know that we need to.
Oh,
put
I have
it
a
in the
vague
agenda
recollection.
format. Huh?
It's
A
in there.
vague recollection.
It's in there very brief. If you look at it, it's not too crazy. It's pretty much what we follow. But because we adapted CASB core, it took it out. So my point to you is, do we want to put it back in? Okay, the blue with the line means we took it out, so we can roll it back in. That's just a quick, yeah, we want to put that back in there. It should be noted. And that's it. I mean, to be honest with you guys, there's not a ton here that is, egregious, but there are some changes.
Okay, so Casby's taken out quite a bit of what we had.
Depends on the policy, but yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the first, I would also, there's a lot more in BID, BIE, so we can look at that. But we all have it. We all have it as red line. If it's red, it's new. If it's blue, it's out. You can add the blue back in. Okay, we can adjust the policies as we see fit. I would stay away from anything that has legislation attached to it. We need to leave that there. These are all cross-referenced with the brand new legislation, which is what we got when we paid for the core policy. So that's all the stuff at the bottom that you see.
Well, sometimes you have to look at the law too, because CASB, sometimes they add to what the state law says.
That's that.
Yeah.
Next time we'll be voting on all of these. If anybody has any, this might be helpful. If anybody has any like really specific feedback, that they don't want to take time at the next meeting to do, we should either do it during work session, or maybe we can round robin, but maybe we can speed this up a little bit somehow, so we're not doing it all live, changes live.
Can we do it, as far as when we go through these, just send you the information that we're concerned about, or we need to
Do we
discuss
need to
that?
have a public discussion about
Yeah,
it?
you do.
We have to have a public discussion before we make any changes, but what we're talking about is, you're gonna have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people.
Yeah.
It's gonna take a long time if we don't come up with a way to consolidate, review, and then
I'll be glad to send my comments to everybody.
that might be a better way to do it.
To do what?
Send comments. to
Send
everyone.
comments to everybody, just
Okay.
email comments for
Yeah,
each
there
one
you
of
go.
these. And then you
And
can
then
agree
discuss.
with it or not, and we can have a shorter discussion, because we'll have a list of comments and be done with it.
Yeah.
I like that.
Would it be on the things that Emily pointed out, or?
It's on
could
all
be
of
any?
them. I'll look on any of them, at all of them, and make commentary if I feel there's something to be commented on.
What I send out is gonna come way in advance of that commentary, because we're doing the red lines 2 months in advance.
Right.
So no.
Okay, so these policies to review, all of these will go to first reading,
They're at
discussion
first
and first vote, right? For next meeting.
Mhm.
Okay. All right, we have strategic, is anything else on policy? Oh, God.
Not
Okay.
those policies.
All right, strategic plan and PBL objective report. This was the 4C.
I think that we got a great deal of information. It backs the 4B. I feel like we got what we needed and we're good.
I think so.
Audion has direction, we're good.
All right, 11, any other comment? That's pretty good. Okay, board action to accept the objective report, objective 4D.
I would move that we accept objective report 4B as approaching standard with edits from Audion as it's returned back to
I
us.
second that.
Yes, approaching standard with edits. Okay, so I have a motion and a second to accept objective 4D as approaching standards with Audion's edits. Any discussion? All right, can you call the vote, Heather?
Katie Cahill Volpe,
Aye.
Victor Figueroa,
Aye.
Tim Hunter,
All right,
Emily Hutchinson Brown.
Aye. Okay, motion passes 5-0. Okay, action items.
I move we do all action items by consent, that's A through U.
A through where?
Well, you can, that's what a second in discussion is about.
I'd like to pull out you. So I would move that we approve action items A through T.
Okay, so I have a motion with a correction.
I'll amend my motion. She wants to
And I'll
second.
second it.
Okay, so I have an action to approve actions A through T. And a second. Any discussion?
No.
Okay, here we call the question, please.
Katie Cahill Volpe,
Aye.
Pam Carpenter,
Aye.
Victor Figueroa,
Aye.
Tim Hunter,
All right,
Emily Hutchinson Brown.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 5-0. Okay, you.
Okay, on IG, which is the curriculum development,
Yeah.
I just wanted to point out and make sure that we are all privy to the additional paragraphs that have been added, which are that all new programs and courses of study, as well as the elimination and
Never mind, I left my copy at home, sorry.
Okay,
I'll do that.
an extensive alteration of the content of current programs and courses shall be presented by the superintendent and school leadership to the board for its consideration and action. Curriculum review committees shall include administrators, teachers, parents, accountability members, and others deemed appropriate by the board or superintendent, with the school teachers from the school that is choosing a new curriculum having priority on the curriculum chosen. The team will consist of at least one staff member from each school level to assure PCAL, this is the key, the key sentence for me was, the team will consist of at least one staff member from each school level, PK through 12, i.e., right, to basically be part of that process. So this is new,
Yeah.
and I wanted to make sure we all understood.
Elementary would involve PK and middle.
And middle and maybe even high, because you're trying to create that continuum, right? I'm fine, I'm okay with it as written, but I wanted to point that out. I do think that we may need to make some changes to GBEB-R potentially, or come back and make some changes, and I'll tell you why.
So I just want to make sure we're clear on something.
Mhm.
So if it's high school, for example, and they're looking at a curriculum or whatever, they would have an elementary and preschool person also on their committee. Is that correct?
Middle.
Okay.
Well, especially be nice, when you look at middle
Sure.
school, knowing where you're going,
Absolutely.
you know?
Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah. Wonder when that, yeah,
So it makes sense.
yeah.
And it's not, I don't know that it's a giant ask. I think it actually makes sense for everybody to be on the same page. I just wanted us to be aware
Well,
of it.
and my thing was just that, the curriculum review committee shall include administrator, teacher, parents, accountability members, and any others deemed appropriate. But I was just thinking this would be a really good thing for our accountability committee to be involved with as well.
Which Tigo did report earlier
Uh-huh,
that elementary presented to them last month,
right,
and they did have that discussion, and I wasn't aware of that, so that was great.
yeah. But did the parents have the opportunity to review the curriculum?
I don't know.
So that was my question to Tigo that I was gonna ask him now, because I knew we were gonna be talking about this, is did they get to review those three curriculums?
The actual curriculums.
Yeah, there was actual curriculum presented. I don't know if it was
Well,
just
I know
one or
Tara
three.
did, but did the three that
Yes.
we looked at? Okay.
Yes, so elementary did present actual curriculum to DAC, but
Okay.
I don't know if it was multiple curriculums or just
no,
one.
they gave
curriculum.
what he said is that they gave an example of curriculum,
Okay, yeah, and I know
both procedurally and the actual curriculum.
Okay.
But is that review of
Yeah.
curriculum, like, I read this,
Yeah, that's-
I interpret this as like,
I
someone can take a look at this and like see what this
No, they got a
textbook.
presentation of curriculum.
Yes, that's
I don't
not a
know if that's a
review.
That's not a review, yes.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree, Katie, that's what I was trying to point to. is
Well,
Did they really
That's,
get to into the
you know,
notes?
This threads back to our PBL discussion.
It does.
As board members, you know, approving an expenditure for a curriculum, which is not $5,
Right.
how is that going to tie with what we're talking about with PBL? And if those decisions are made outside of the purview of all parties involved,
Mhm.
then we're spending money erroneously, potentially, right? I mean, that's my concern, is how does it all thread together? Are we making decisions too quickly, too slowly,
Mhm.
there's a lot involved here. And I like the policy as it's written. I want to make sure that we are following
Yeah,
the
if we're
policy
gonna
as it's
adopt this,
written
it needs, yeah.
to be followed. I don't know that we need to make adjustments to it. I'm trying to point that out for reasons that we are looking at curriculum currently. That's why I brought it to the table. I have no changes to make.
Okay. And this is one we're looking at.
Okay.
correct?
Yes, that's it. Here, this is how it's
All
redlined.
right, and then curriculum or staff conduct, you didn't want any changes?
I don't know if I'm ready to move past this yet. I brought up a couple months ago that I wanted to see some of our major initiatives at least addressed. Now, I don't know, frankly, at this point, whether any of this curriculum that is approved by the READ Act, and I do understand that there is a set group of curriculum that we can only choose from, and that may not have PBL in it. That may not have SEL elements to it, but I feel like we're not, it's not, we are not aligned with our goals.
Yeah.
And that's very concerning. And so I feel like we're approving a policy, which I don't necessarily have any problems with, but our practice is a little wonky.
Right.
Well, I would opt, since there was no motion even to have this discussion as a point of parliamentary procedure.
But I did.
But
No,
there
you
is
did
a,
not make a motion.
Oh, we have to make a motion
You
first.
did not
Sorry,
make a
that was
motion for approval or disapproval. I would make a motion that we table action item U
Oh,
for further discussion to a time definite, and I don't care what time it is, but since
Okay.
there seems to be a lot of discussion around this,
Yeah, so table it until next meeting, or to put an action item.
that's
for next
fine.
month.
Table the first reading of these.
Well, preview, it's on the preview this month, right?
this was first
First
reading and
Was this
discussion.
first
First,
reading?
first reading, and if we
All
table
right.
the first reading, we still have a lot more time for discussion and can make changes for our first reading and then have a little smoother discussion next time.
And then if I could ask a question, so we're looking at ELA curriculum, we're evaluating ELA curriculum
Right
for
now.
next year. So I think what I'm hearing though is we want to make sure of let's say there's 7 curriculums that are approved by the READ Act.
Mhm.
We want to see if any of those are consistent with our strategic plan as it relates to PBL and SEL. And if so, then those curriculum would be elevated or get extra consideration in the evaluation process. And then in addition, to be consistent with IG, which would be eventually passed here, we want to make sure that there's a review of preschool and at least in middle school of the curriculum to assure that there's alignment from preschool to elementary to middle school.
Correct.
Okay, and that's what I'm hearing.
do we want to address the review by,
Oh,
the parent?
by the parent.
Yeah, what would that look like as we have review by the parent? In my mind, I see that as whichever school is having at least a group, some sort of representative group of parents come in and review the curriculum, allowing for some presentation and some question and answer.
Mhm.
Would that
Any
work
feedback
for?
they have, any feedback that they might have.
Okay.
I would go,
After
and I would
that.
go to your PTA. You have a really strong PTA group right now.
Yeah,
So and those are parents.
okay.
But so
To see if they
DAC.
would,
DAC is comprised of parents.
It
as
is,
well.
but we have down, it already on the policy has accountability members, so to get them involved as well, but would have a night where maybe this elementary does the work to see which ones go to strategic plan, which one are PBL, bring those to the table, and then see which ones, what comments they get back from these groups. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yeah, so what I'm really hearing is, I'm hearing it's important that parents, a representative group of parents have a look at the curriculum and review it, allowing for question and answer and something that's more in depth than the DAC just receiving a presentation on the curriculum.
Yeah,
Okay,
don't you think?
is that what I'm hearing?
Where they're actually, they can look through it and,
That's how I interpret the policy.
Okay,
That's how I interpret the policy
Me
as
too.
well.
okay, well, I'm good. So I feel like we have clarity on that, so that should be
Yeah.
helpful for us in moving forward. And of course, the other thing with all curriculum is we have to be able to afford it.
Absolutely.
Because
that was
there's,
my next thing,
there's-
budget, yeah.
it's, so fortunately through the READ Act, we have READ Act funds
Mhm.
that as a READ Act compliant school district, as we look at the ELA curriculum, we will be receiving funds on an annual basis. And so we could figure out how we can afford the curriculum, and what would be the best approach for doing that.
And that would be like, is that 30,000 or something like that?
That's, yes, for this year, I think it varies on the number of kids that have a READ plan.
Oh,
And that's how the state
That makes
funds
sense.
this district
yeah.
from READ Act dollars. So if we have but that's good. So we'll be able to then also look at that and figure out how this appropriately fits into the budget as well.
Yeah.
We do know this is a priority in the sense that it's one of our foundational curriculum at a very important level. And I think that's also what's sparking to make sure that we're following IG as it's being developed fully also. So I feel like that makes good sense. And I think that will work for staff. I feel like it seems good to me. So I expect a positive
Well, I know
solution to this.
they talked about how we should, it's not in that one, but one of them talks about how we should have curriculum on every year as an ongoing thing with all curriculum, not just elementary, middle school, high school. So, and we don't really have a schedule like that, do we? Is current time?
No, we don't. I did
Another one of your
I did charge our principals with that,
Mhm.
but I told them that I don't expect that till August.
Yeah.
Because, the last 6 weeks, this isn't the right time. and-
Right,
And I want to make sure that they get a good rest as well, but we'll be seeing that, they'll be getting that to me for first review in August.
okay.
So in relation to GBEB-R, and I know we can table the conversation for later.
Well, as a point of order, there's been a motion made. There's been a
But
bunch of
doesn't
discussion
it
without
say
any
first reading and
second.
discussion here? So where am I going wrong with that? Because you
Well-
says first
So-
reading and discussion.
So someone needed to
Just
second
as a
it,
point of
and then
order,
she would call
Either
the
nobody
discussion.
seconds it and it
because
gets
it is-
tabled and it goes
It
on to
is
something
action
else.
items.
We are
Yeah,
under action
items.
items.
Right.
So
First
just as a
reading
point
and
of
discussion.
parliamentary
First vote.
procedure, and I like the discussion, but it's out of order.
But
Yeah.
it doesn't say first vote, so I guess that's what's confusing me.
Yeah, it should be and vote, first vote, because first reading and discussion and first vote all go together. Okay, so we need the motion and a second.
So if there was no second on my motion to table it, then we need to have another motion on the
I
floor.
will second the motion to table it.
Okay, then we can have discussion about it.
Okay,
And
So-
I like the discussion, so I didn't pull that point of order
Right.
before, but we need to follow the procedure.
you're right. Okay, so I have a motion and a second to table first reading, discussion, and first vote on GBEB-R and IG. Any discussion? Okay, now go with your.
Everything that was just said in the last 10 minutes in regard to IG.
Okay,
Additionally,
okay.
in regard to GBEB-R, the last paragraph, Todd, my concern is this. We need to clarify if there is reciprocal policy language in the handbooks and other policies that this crosses over to, because as soon as you start talking about students in staff policy, it negates JK, JK-R, JKD, JKE. There's at least 4 other policies
that are way down the road that this paragraph will impact. And so my thought was, why, maybe we need to pull those policies and wrap that language into those policies sooner rather than later. That language is as such. The school also takes the issue of false reporting very seriously and will thoroughly investigate any instances of suspected or alleged false reporting. And if substantiated, will take action against any individuals who make a false report up to and including expulsion for students or employment termination for employees. Students are reminded that Colorado law states that blah, 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 blah. And then actually further along, there's actual statute that is referenced there. This is a staff conduct policy that is referencing student consequences. And I just think it's mindful of us to look at the student policies, and we should do this at the same time, or we've got one hand saying this and another hand saying that. That's my point.
Without having those other policies in front of me, I can't, I don't.
I need to
have
go
time to
dig in.
pull them.
And that's why the
I had
motion was made to
either.
table this.
Right, and I didn't
Can I
either.
finish my thought then? May
Yes.
I? Thank you. I just want to, you are saying that they are in contradiction to each other?
They
Yeah.
would be if we adopted a new policy here, they potentially could be in contradiction to student policy. All I'm asking is give me time to give us time to pull that policy and see, investigate before we adopt, right? And then additionally, the handbook piece was brought forth for me. We were given the MELC handbook in this month's board packet, which was tremendous. I would like to, and this is probably something for future agenda, but I would like to see our elementary and our middle high school handbooks. And this is the kind of thing that crosses over to a handbook as well. Maybe, I don't know. I know they're being rewritten, but I don't feel comfortable adopting this as it is because there's too many other threads out there. So we need to table it, have further discussion. I'll pull the other policy. Does that make sense? As to my why of,
It does, and you know, it brings in, there's there's a couple of bills that will go with that as well, that I don't know if they're gonna pass yet.
the bill thing doesn't ever make me nervous because CASB tells us
That's
when
true.
it affects
That is
policy. So I tend to put blinders on to those things.
Okay.
You sit on LRC, so I think you're way more in the
Yeah.
thick of it. Whereas I just can't even take my mind there until it's actually done. And then I say, okay, let me go pay attention to that.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I've looked at this. But those two items in these two particular policies, which are furthest along in our process, caused pause. So we table
So we
for
have to,
next time.
we
right?
have to put, because we tabled, we
Yes.
need to put a date.
The time definite, we said next
Next
meeting,
agenda, right?
Yes,
on our next
Okay.
yeah,
agenda.
we'll put it on the next agenda, but we need to have a vote, because we haven't had a vote, we've got.
Well, that's what the
Correct.
motion was for. And we got a
Right.
motion and a second to table
Okay.
until time
So
definite, which is next.
So now you have to vote.
Question,
Are
please?
you ready?
Are you?
Ms. Cahill Volpe,
I,
Sam Coppinger,
Aye.
Mr. Figueroa,
Aye.
Kim Hunter,
Aye.
Hutchinson Brown.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 4-0. We'll add that to agenda. Okay, public participation, I'm assuming you're here. How would you like to address the board? Come on up.
my goodness, what a
You
trooper.
can grab a chair and bring it up, or however you're most comfortable.
I do apologize for losing half of my crew. They were hangry. They hadn't eaten since lunch, so
I
I'm going
understand.
to read a letter from my third grader who is a part of the math intervention program, if I may, in her stead, because she just, I'm sure you heard all her gruntings and groanings. She's over it. So this is from,
Just for the record, could you identify yourself?
I'm sorry, my name is Anita Marshall. I'm a parent of a third grader and also middle schooler here at Mancos. So, sorry, I'm angry too. This is from.
So are
Bella-
we.
Bella, I figured, so I'm trying to be brief. This is from Bella Pizzini, third grade. Erica Holm is her teacher. Good evening, Mancos Middle School Board. My name is Bella Pizzini. I am in Mrs. Holm's third grade class. I am very sad that there is no longer a math intervention program I looked forward to that time in my school day very much. I really liked doing advanced math because it challenged me. Now that it's shut down, I don't feel like I'm challenging myself enough. It makes me feel like I never did advanced math, and I think that I really want it to come back. I love doing advanced math. I am very smart for my age. Ms. Toy is a great teacher and challenges us to do our very best during our learning time. Please allow this portion, or please allow, oh, sorry. Please allow this position to be a part of the Mancos school curriculum program so that other kids like me have a chance to learn these very important skills that we will use the rest of our lives. Thank you for your time. Respectfully, Bella Pizzini.
Very well written.
Thank you. Just a few things as a parent. We are originally from out of district. My kids grew up, well, school age up in Dolores. We chose to make the decision to change to Mancos due to many policies. A lot of it was not so much teachers, but the admin, the school board, going to many, many meetings, fighting for what our kids needed and not being heard. So coming from that, I want to thank you for being open to having parent participation and for pretty much following rules, because we saw a lot of that not being done in other districts. As a single parent, I also know that my children are going to be limited on what I'm going to be able to provide them in their future. So I want to thank you for everything that you're doing to help those of us who can't give our kids what we would like to. So I want to thank you for that. And I'm sorry for the tears. When it comes to the math intervention class, it has been such a huge blessing to my daughter. She struggles a lot with being on the spectrum. She's also very advanced. It's very hard for her to make friends. She's very too smart for her own good sometimes, so it's been great to have that available to her to help her be able to process, I guess, for lack of a better explanation, her learning as a general rule. She was one of the kids that was pulled because she was not at risk. Being on the verge of being in the gifted and talented program, there's not a lot available for third graders. It's been pretty frustrating for me as a parent that there's not much in this area that I can do to help her until she gets to like 5th grade. So right now I am riding that wave of her frustration of I'm so smart, I want to do more, but there's not much I can do. So at home, I try to supplement with Prodigy and all the things available to us in the district. The Friday programs through the Montezuma Farm to School project, everything that we can, we try to do, to help her. She reads at like a 7th to 8th grade level, so even trying to be able to find books that are engaging to her, that because she's still in the princesses and fairies and stuff, has been difficult. So God bless Miss Holm. She tries really hard to find what she can and gives her stuff above her level so that she can be challenged and does not get frustrated, because we deal with a lot of anger issues from she's not being pushed. So I have known Toy Smith for many years. We followed them here from the Lord. She was the one that pushed me to say, make the change. The school will be better for your kids, community-wise, education-wise. So we really were hesitant to make the switch financially and everything else that goes along with that as a single parent, but we did. And we're here and we're grateful to be here. I would, as a parent who doesn't get to be involved much in the school and the day-to-day things as much as I would like to be, I am not financially able to do that. So having the opportunities to come to board meetings, to see, I don't know, like an open policy as far as curriculum, that's choices that are being presented. That's great for me as a parent. I don't have time for PTA. I don't have time for a lot of extra stuff. However, I do want to be involved as much as I can be in my kids' future and their education. So I don't know how many of us are out there like me, but as a parent, that's really important to me that I actually speak into my kids' lives and give them the best options that I can for their education. Sorry, I lost my notes. When it comes to the topic of a middle school counselor, that is something that is very important to me. My middle school daughter had an instance where a friend of hers in school was wanting to commit suicide and actually sent a note home with my daughter saying, I want to hurt myself. And she didn't know what to do with that. She had no idea. So we have had little conversations about suicide and mental health in our home. But as a student and it happening at school, she was unaware of who to talk to about that. Coming from a family where there is a lot of mental health issues and knowing friends with kids personally that where their kids in middle school is rough for kids, having somebody safe that they know they can talk to is huge. Sure, in elementary, it's wonderful. My daughter takes advantage of that a lot. But I think as kids are in those gap years between high school and elementary, where they're still learning who they are as a person, having somebody available that they can talk to is huge. And I don't know of any parent that would think that's a bad idea. Your bus drivers are awesome. I know there's very few of them. We try to do all we can as parents to make sure that they have good children on the buses. At least I do try to make sure they say thank you, and we are very grateful for the transportation department and for all the people that are working here for our kids. We are very grateful for all of you. I know you all take this time out of your day to come and do this and hash through all the stuff that we don't want to do, so thank you. And I guess that's pretty much all I have to say.
Thank you.
Can I
Thank you
ask
very
you a quick
much.
question?
Sure.
Do you feel as though your elementary school daughter's time in the math intervention program has affected not just her math, but any other dynamics of her learning? Because you mentioned she was kind of like almost gifted and like really like grasping for everything she can.
She is off the charts for gifted when it comes to the elementary. The only things they're able to push right now for them are math and reading. So being assigned extra books, this will make sure that she has an extra spelling test to do of all the words that the kids are doing, and then she has like 10 words that even I have a hard time spelling, just to try to help her. And she gets graded on it, but it, doesn't count towards an actual grade. It's just little things she's doing to help push her, because she's smart. I noticed a big change in her mood once she found out that she could no longer go to the math intervention, because that was her time to be with some of the smart kids and be able to be in that little group of kids that maybe are teased for being, oh, you're just so smart, you want to go to the extra class. So for her being very emotional, I've noticed a huge swing in her mood of being disappointed and thinking that it's something that she did, because not enough of her classmates wanted to keep doing it. She was pulled as well. So as you heard in her letter, she feels that she did something so that she doesn't deserve the program anymore. If that answers your question.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I do know, I've been in Toy's class, and I know that she does use some teachers some students as peer teachers.
Yes.
For their group. Does your daughter get too involved in teaching others as well? Is that?
She is able to do that for kindergarten for the reading program, and she really enjoys that as well. So that is available to her.
Good. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
And parent advice is always needed.
Always.
We're always open to.
Well, I appreciate that you're open.
Welcome to Mancos. Hope you stay.
Oh, thank you. We're trying our best.
All right. Future agenda items, I got the board handbook discussion and may adopt in June. I've got the first reading, second reading, first vote of the policies. I've also got, oh, and the first read for all of the policies, first read, first discussion, first vote for all of them, the bulk of them.
PDL.
Oh, yes, PBL, that was the other one, thank you.
Process.
Yes, and I wrote on too many spaces. I gotta get more organized with that. Okay.
Board handbook,
Board handbook.
board handbook, we could take.
Oh, I
we
did
could
put,
put
I
that
did
to
put down
June.
board handbooks
We could do it
for
to
middle,
June.
high, and elementary. Eventually, we need all of those.
You're
Oh,
right.
no, the board handbook,
Board
not the
handbook.
student handbook.
We need to
I think
review,
I had-
we
I
have
had
to
board handbook down here, discussion in May,
We can do that in
And-
June.
adopt
You
in
wanna do it
June.
in
adopt in
June?
June.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I think that's
We
what
could do
they
work session
said.
in May, like a brief work session.
We have,
discussion.
there's time.
I would actually bring one more thing to light, and I apologize if the work set or if the agenda is not the right place, but I would personally like to have further conversation about the math interventionist position. The structure of that, and as it specifically relates to other interventionists that we have in the elementary, because we have a lot of employees over there
Yeah,
doing intervention. They're just not math. And we, we don't know what the end of the year is gonna look like and who's gonna stay and who's not, and, at least I don't think we know. But I think it would be important, and we can do this in the work session, but I do think it's important to have a conversation about that. First place I went was our NWEA data, and our NWEA data showed that that position worked extremely well. And in comparison to the other areas that we're looking at interventions, there was no improvement. And so to me, I feel a little bit as though we're kind of cutting our nose to spite our face because we're like grant, and that's to your point, Tim, like when you pull a grant in and you see a grant position work, and then you don't have a grant, what do? And I get it, but I feel strongly enough to have a conversation about that and figure out if there's anything, any creative way to look at that. So I would like to figure out how to follow up on it.
okay, and I did text Matt Cook while we were sitting here talking about this earlier, and I sent it on to Todd, but he said he thinks the bill I'm referring to is House Bill 23-1231. There's grant money in the bill for these hires. The bill has passed the House and I expect it to pass the Senate this week. So just another thing for you to look at, maybe, and I have to say on a personal note that Toy is doing PBL. I mean, she hasn't been asked to, that's just how her mind works. If we don't rehire her somewhere, something is wrong. I mean, she has a knack for getting to kids. So that's just I go sitting in her classroom. The kids love it. They come in and they're busy. They don't care if I'm talking and Toy's talking to me. They are busy.
That NWEA
Yeah, and that was
data
shabby.
is strong, I know,
Yeah,
but I would expect, and we can look next year, I would expect we'll see some same results. I mean, she's proven it with these,
right.
she's showing the same results already.
Yeah. So, and we will have that report. They're starting interviewing in a couple of weeks, I think.
Yeah,
End of the year. So we'll have those reports in June.
okay, that's all I have.
And that's all I have to do. Anything else? All right, we are officially closed.
That could be.